Welcome to episode 29 of the Hike or Die Outdoor Adventure podcast. I'm here with Craig, and we're sitting in the wilderness at the moment at an absolutely amazing campsite. In this episode, we interview Ross McGibbon, who's a dangerous snake photographer, but also he's an ex-snake catcher. So anything you wanted to know about snakes, you're going to learn in this episode. He's a top bloke, and he had some really insightful stuff to share with us, didn't he, Craig?
For sure.
Cool. All right. We won't actually play the music now, but when we get back in the studio, we'll put the music in, and then it'll kind of start about now. Thank you, as always, to our regular podcast sponsors for their support. Topo Maps Plus, a phone application that allows you to view topographical maps and track your location even without cell phone coverage. Go deeper into the backcountry. Rios floating polarized sunglasses with 100% UV protection for the love of water. Bluey Merino, Australian superfine merino wool base, mid and top layer garments. Where our story ends, yours is just beginning. Caribou, one of Australia's leading backpack, travel and outdoor brands. They supply us with dry bags, waterproof day packs and expedition bags. Supporting our sponsors allows us to continue to produce this podcast, so please jump online and check out what they have to offer. We'd first like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land from which we record this podcast, and pay our respects to their elders past and present. We extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander listeners. Craig, how are you, mate?
Hey Tom, I'm good. This is what I like to do, and we're doing it.
Yeah, this is a bit, how would you say it? Old school is probably not the right word, but I've got a pen and printouts. Craig's getting attacked.
I'm getting attacked by what?
By some kind of hornet or wasp in his face. I've got paper printed out with information. If you hear that or that throughout the show, that's what that is. There are a few dangerous ants getting around, and that's no exaggeration.
I thought you meant old school, like getting back to how we used to do it. We used to do a few of these.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good point as well. Yeah, this is a bit of a return to that. This is Craig and our first hike post-COVID, so it's very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even pre-COVID, we had a few things that got, a few family matters that got in the way for both of us. So, I know it's just fantastic to be here. We hiked, what was the total number in the end? Something around 13 to 15 yesterday? 15?
Yeah, I don't have it with me. We measured it, but
yeah, it's in the vicinity of 14 or 15 kilometres. Very, very, very steep. It was definitely a shock to the system, and I appreciate all the training that I did.
Yeah, it was a bit uphill, eh?
Oh my goodness, I think the first 2 hours solid were straight
uphill.
But we were rewarded yesterday afternoon by climbing down to a waterfall and swimming in the pool below for a couple of hours, sleeping or resting on the rocks and things like that.
Yeah, it's magic. We've ended up having this campsite all to ourselves, not too far from this huge waterfall with swimming holes.
There's no water falling, just to be clear.
Yeah, it's really dry.
But I know I was thinking about that yesterday. What do you call a waterfall that's not? What if someone just walked up here now and discovered this for the first time? Would they say, "Oh, I'm going to call this Tom's Waterfall," or would they just say, "I'm going to call this Tom's Rock Pools"?
Tom's Rock Pools.
Tom's Cliffs with rock pools.
That's probably what I would say, mate.
I think you'd have to come here when it's got water to say it's called falls.
I think it would be a totally different experience. Those are big falls.
They're big falls. What would they be? 40 foot? Especially that last one would be 40 foot.
Oh, at least.
The one down to where we swam, 40 or 50 foot drop. That's a long way for water to fall.
That's why I was so scared climbing down.
Yes. You were a little. It's all right. There's a bit of a scramble down there, but we're here to tell the tale.
Yes.
All good. I this is a little bit of my fault. Is I knew I had to get onto the quiz question, but I thought, oh no, I'll do that later. And worst case scenario, when we get to, because Craig and I actually drove out here the night before last. Long story short, camped in a campground, packed the car up, so we were ready to go early. And I thought, oh, I'll just work on the quiz question there, but I had no phone reception.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's all good though, because I'm going to replace that with a quote that I saved on my phone, which I do have here. Apologies, guys. I'll be referring to my phone a lot of the time. Saved information. I found this quote it was posted by just someone we follow on Instagram called Hikers Rock. Shout out to you, Hikers Rock. You're 100% right there with your name. They posted a little quote, and I don't actually know who Duncan Trussell is, sorry, but it really rings a bell. I'm reluctant to go any further than that because I always end up in the next episode saying that I said something wrong. I just think
Duncan Trussell.
Duncan Trussell.
Yeah, he's a comedian from America.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
I'll probably say something wrong there.
I hope. Right, better you than me. But the quote is fantastic, and I'll just read it out to you. Some poor phoneless fool is probably sitting next to a waterfall somewhere, totally unaware of how angry and scared he's supposed to be.
That's nice, dude.
That's awesome, right?
Yeah.
It's just so worth sharing that.
That is good.
So yeah, thanks Hikers Rock for the laugh that the morning that I saw that pop up in the feed. That's very good.
I've certainly
highly accurate.
Certainly felt the transition coming out here, eh?
Yeah?
Yeah, just moving away from those sort of social norms. That's what we come out here for.
It is.
We do come out here and then we chat about all the shit that goes on at home, but it is nice to get away from it, eh?
It is. It's valuable.
That's what
I know that a lot of people that are experiencing lockdown in various parts of the world.
Yeah, we were talking about that, eh?
Yeah, it's difficult to get into an outdoor space, and to be honest, I think that the therapeutic benefits that we need are found out here for many reasons. The fact, like I said before, that my phone didn't even work when I was at the base camp site, let alone here. I've got nothing here. But there's been a whole day so far that we've had no contact.
3 days without the phone.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Pretty
Although I am using it to reference notes.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, right.
I just didn't want to be honest, I didn't want to waste paper printing everything out, so I just printed out the essential stuff, and I've just got screenshots on my phone.
Cool.
So that's how we're running, guys. If it sounds a bit clunky, it's because, well, it's always clunky. What are you surprised?
Yeah, it is.
Craig, I'm going to start hitting the news, but are you able to start hitting that coffee for us?
Oh, yep, we're ready for that. I will. I'll light up this thing and we'll get...
This is, I just want to say, before you light that, there's many, many beautiful sounds in nature while we're out here, and I was thinking the other day about the most beautiful man-made sound in nature when I'm hiking is this. Lighting the stove.
Oh, the lighting the stove. And then what about the clinking of the handle too?
The clinking of the handle, yeah, we'll do that one. Yes, I said that one to you last night, didn't I?
Yeah.
But do the lighting of the stove, I'll shut up.
But I've got a flint.
No, that's all right, because you're still going to hear that. Just don't. Craig shits himself when he every single time he flinches. You got your hand over the gas.
That's all right. I've got to turn it on. That's something else.
You hear that? That is. Does anyone know Pavlov's dog? The theory behind that. Look it up. It's very interesting.
Absolutely.
Long story short, he. I don't know whether you call him a scientist or whatever, but he discovered that you could trigger emotions just by ringing this bell and feeding his dog, it would salivate, and then after a while he would just ring the bell and the dog would salivate even if the food wasn't there. Well, that sound there is Pavlov's dog to me. And this one, here's the next one.
Other one.
That's the sound of locking in the handle.
Locking the handles in on
the
crux.
How would you say that? The pan,
pot,
the pot of the camping stove that we both use.
That's such a hiking sound.
That's such a hiking sound for us because we've used the same model for years.
Right,
anyway, Craig's got the water on. There's a bit of wind coming in there. Bear with us. All right, here we go. News. This is a headline. Cougar stalks man. I know what you're thinking. Don't go to those kinds of nightclubs. It's not about that.
It happens.
It's there's an absolutely fantastic video that this guy recorded. Believe it was off his iPhone or GoPro of a cougar in the US, obviously. For some reason, again, it's that situation where it had a young with it, and as he passed by or got within the vicinity, it noticed him and it took particular interest to him. The mother did, and it went at him and started coming real close, and he kind of turns around and he's talking to it and saying, don't come, you're not interested in me, and walking backwards, maintaining eye contact while he's filming very calmly. But there's two things that shocked me about this video. The first one is how long it followed him for. This video goes for, I'll try not to exaggerate here, but in the vicinity of 5 minutes or something. It continues and continues and continues, and the whole time the furthest away it is probably 15 meters. So, and then the other thing that shocked me was it was doing these faux charges, so these displays of aggression, and it would run at him and put both paws out to the side, and then just bare its teeth and go and come out with him within 5 meters or 6 meters of him, and it did this again and again and again,
but not attack.
No, it didn't attack. But what was really cool was I then did a bit of research on it. And have you ever heard of Forrest Galante?
No.
It's hard to say exactly what he is, but I believe he has a TV show where he travels the world. If something's extinct or believed extinct, he'll travel to that part of the world and put together a massive expedition to see if they can find one of these things. Yep. So he's always in the outdoors, and if you look on his Instagram page, he's always handling crazy lizards and spiders and snakes and crocodiles and stuff. So they did an interview with him on a particular TV show and asked him about it, and he explained it all, and he said what that guy did was perfect, absolutely perfect. Everything he did was perfect, and there's one particular point where it charges him, and of course I'll put the video on show notes, but he decides that the only way to kind of stop this is to be aggressive towards the cougar, and he has to try and squat down, find a rock decent size on the ground, and the second he drops eye contact, this thing attacks again. Like, it's just so tuned into that predator mode where it's looking at his face and his eyes. The second he dipped his head to grab a rock, it comes tearing on in. Anyway, he throws a rock in its direction, and it kind of snaps it out of that. It snaps it out of that curiosity mode, and it turns around and trots off, and it's all good. But it's full props to how calm this guy was. Wow. And walking backwards up a hiking trail with a pack on, squatting down, picking up rocks, throwing them, and filming.
Right.
No, that's better than I could ever do.
Yeah, it's cool he filmed it, Jesus.
Yeah, it's a good watch too, to see that the display that this cougar puts on. This is all. This kind of feeds pretty well into what we're. This is all fear-mongering stuff that just seemed to pop up recently. Listen to this headline: Hikers discover bear eating man at Great Smoky Mountains campsite. Now, I just want to clarify that. I think it's not a bear eating man. I think it's a bear eating a man. I don't think they walked into a campsite and there was a guy eating a bear. Okay? So hikers discover bear eating man at Great Smoky Mountains campsite. Listen to the lead into this article. This is horrific, and I'm not trying to make light of it. I guess I am trying to make light of it. It's a terrible situation, but I'm not being horrible, trust me. A group of hikers, the water's on the boil. It's slightly more important than news.
No, tell us the story.
A group of hikers in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park ended their trek in horror after discovering a bear dining on human remains.
Wow.
Imagine that. Like, that'd be
that'd
similar
be
to us getting back to our car, and just as we get back to the car tomorrow afternoon, there's
just find it.
the dude there getting. So there's what I think slightly misleading again in this. I don't know who wrote this article. Well, I think slightly misleading again. It says they discover a bear dining on human remains. That kind of paints a picture that he has a little towel on his lap and he's set it all up. I don't believe that was the case. I think he was eating a man.
Yeah, it would have been pretty gruesome.
Well, listen to this. Where was it? Oh yeah. So they appeared to what appeared to be a deserted. Sorry, they passed by what appeared to be a deserted campsite, where they encountered a scattering of body parts.
Oh,
that's just people complain about Australia being dangerous. Wake up to yourselves. This is incredible.
Yeah.
Now the reason I did kind of stick with doing this, I even thought about crossing this story out last night when I was reviewing the notes, was there's a really, I guess, important message at the end of the article where the Great Smoky Mountains website warns park goers to avoid coming within 50 feet of black bears, which are native of the region. If one is spotted running towards you, making loud noises or swatting the ground, don't run, but slowly back away, watching the bear. Increase the distance between you and the bear. The bear will probably do the same. I'm not for a second saying that that guy didn't try any of that. We don't know the circumstances. And in a very interesting point that they make, it's actually not 100% confirmed that the bear killed him. Okay, so this may not have been a bear attack. Could have been, he could have had a heart attack and died at his campsite, and then the bears come in. So we don't know that. But yeah, gruesome stuff, eh?
Yeah, pass me your cup, buddy.
Yeah.
No, that's horrible. That's horrible. We could get a whole bunch of these ants jump on us and take us out.
Oh, imagine that, and someone finds I'll take the water. Someone finds the audio later, and it's because it would take a long time for these ants to eat us. It's about like a 24-hour saga of us
squealing,
writhing in pain. Ouchie! Oh, don't bite me there. Oh, you just took a chunk out of me. And then kind of looking over you and go, Craig, do something.
Help. What do we do now? Yeah, we're lucky in Australia, eh? Go a bit further north, we've got the crocodiles.
Yeah, there's things that are going to mess you up. So I'm just trying to pour into this plunger.
And I guess what leads nicely is snakes.
Yeah, well, that's what I was... I'll get to later, but that's what I was kind of... just getting this coffee. I'm using... shout out to coffeeworks.com.au. They sent us this kind of outdoor coffee plunger of sorts. It's like an insulated mug. It's epic. And I put fresh grounds in there this morning. What am I talking about? Put fresh grounds in there just then, and poured the water in over the top, and then I got to push the plunger down in a few minutes and then enjoy my delicious coffee. Thank you.
Yep, little plunger coffee. I'm having a little, almost espresso. These things are great.
Yeah,
Espresso.
that's what I used on the overland track. How would you say that's pronounced? I always say wakako or wake. If you say it in American accent, it's probably wakako. Wakako.
Mini presso.
Yeah, the mini presso. I'm sure everyone's familiar with them.
Yeah.
They, no word of a lie, the shot that comes out of them
is real good.
The crema on top, and we're not even sponsored by these. It's just a fact. They're a little bit tedious. There's a bit of work involved in cleaning. You're about to hear some strange sounds. I don't think. Do I see you pour water in?
What have I done wrong? Oh, it's upside down.
You're just about to squirt the hot water in your face, and the lid's on. Yeah, so Craig's only just learning how to use this.
Hang on, I do know how to do this.
It sounds like your knees squeaking again, mate. That's what it sounded like walking up the hill with you.
Yeah. So that's why
Craig's doing a shot. I'm going to keep going
try.
because this is awkward.
Go on.
It sounds weird, man. This is a cool story, and it's a very long article, so I'm only going to pick out certain points. But so the headline of this article is this Aboriginal Budgebim volcano tale the world's oldest story?
Budgebim volcano tale.
Budgebim, that's my rough approximation of how it would be pronounced. Is it the world's oldest story? Now, what this article has done, if you listen to our last episode, coincidentally, we learnt from Dwayne Bannon Harrison, who's Indigenous Australian, that it's very important because there's so many dialects and groups of Indigenous Australians across the country. It's very important that you mention what group you're talking about, just to kind of acknowledge that group. So it's really good in this article. Last night at the start I thought, oh my god, they haven't mentioned it, but then down further, now I'm going to try and pronounce this, the Gunditmara is probably the closest I'll ever get to it without being someone helping me. So the Gunditmara people live in Victoria in southeast Australia. And what's happened here is researchers have come up with a novel approach to trying to gain some information about how far back the Indigenous Australian people go, right? And so what they did was, this particular story, I'll just quickly touch on it here, and apologies if I get anything wrong here, but I am reading straight from somebody else's article. They have a story of 4 giants who came to their ancestral homeland. 3 left, but 1 remained here and squatted down. His body transformed into a volcano called Budgebim, and his teeth became the lava the volcano spat out. So, in the area of, I don't have to keep referring to it, the Gunditmara people, there's a massive volcano, and what they've realised is, by talking to the Indigenous people and also understanding how strong their stories are throughout time, what they've worked out is they were there for that eruption.
Or something, yeah, really.
So then they were able to go and look at the the solidified lava, carbon date that, and say, well, if you saw that, you were obviously here. You couldn't have possibly made up this story. Right. And second to that, when they were digging around, they found a stone axe head underneath the lava.
Wow.
So it was there before. So these people watched that volcano explode, which predates
Have you got the dating on it?
Yeah, I don't want to read the dates because I've read a few articles, and in respect to the interview we did last podcast with Dwayne, there's constantly
Changes.
There's constantly changes. Year by year, they're discovering more ways to try and pinpoint it, and I don't want to, in any way say that what we were talking about in the last podcast wasn't accurate at the time. So I'll politely decline that one, mate. Researchers believe that Aboriginal stories are very old. This is based on references to sea levels in myths that have been proven by science to have occurred about 7,000 years ago. However, the Gundit Mara story would be many times older than that, given that they know how long ago that volcano erupted. But isn't it just... I just thought, how cool is that to maintain, and it does mention this in the article as well, to maintain that level of detail and knowledge of the country by passing it on, because there's no written... they do have their cave paintings, but there's no written form. So it's all word of mouth, and it's all... Yeah, even that one point there, 7,000-year-old story about tide levels, and they found scientific evidence of that time that it happened, and they've preserved that in a what do they call, like a creation story of sorts, I think is how Dwayne would refer to them. So yeah, and that's why it's important to mention the people that live in that area, that it's their story, because it's not to be confused with another group's story.
That's right. No, the traditional stories are fascinating, aren't they? And their longevity as well. Yeah,
the longevity is mind-blowing. That's really cool. I never really thought of it as something that you could bank on, but that's cool. Thought that was interesting. That's it for news. I'm going to move into... it's kind of shout-outs, but it's also... well, it's people that have been contacting us. We had a big gap again in putting out episodes, and with everything going on around the world, people that took the time to reach out to us, I was just humbled. Now, Craig doesn't know about these things. Sometimes I'll mention them to him in conversation, but I don't read stuff out to him until we get to the podcast, just to kind of keep it authentic.
Right, you don't tell me.
I don't really tell you anything. No, I literally don't. Just for anyone, I don't tell him what we're doing for news or anything, which is why he's always nervous.
I am,
and rightly so. I received... okay, I'm going to put them in slight chronological order here. Okay, this was one of my greatest emails I've ever received in the history of doing the podcast, the website.
Some good ones.
I've received some absolute crackers. I'm going to be reading a few out that are absolute crackers, and I don't want to take any shine off those either, because I appreciate every single one. But this one, you will understand what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Dear Hike or Die team, my name's Gianna, and I'm 11 years old.
Oh, wow.
I'm a huge fan of your podcast. I really appreciate that, and I think at this point, Craig, you should feel really bad for swearing in earlier.
I try not to swear.
Yeah.
At all times.
I said the SH word today, which was, I think I'm just in a relaxed environment, I let it slip. I'm just plunging my coffee. Sorry, back to Gianna's email. Behind my house there's a lot of woods. I want to build some cool stuff back there. Any tips or advice? I hope you're doing well and staying safe. Please respond if you have time. Gianna, that just made my... I said it to you. I wrote back, of course. I wrote back and gave her a whole bunch of tips on maybe what she should make down there. And I sent her a few videos. I think one of them was Survival Lily, who's a bit of a legend and makes some cool outdoor kind of shelters out of stuff that she uses out of the wilderness. So And then Gianna wrote back again and said, thanks so much for the advice and videos. I'm from the USA. I really appreciate you taking the time to respond to me. On so many levels, that warmed my heart. Like, on so many levels. The fact that Gianna's 11. I have an 11-year-old son and younger, and I just think that is just fantastic that you're, focusing on the wilderness. I love it. And have an interest in any of that sort of bushcraft stuff.
Yeah, it's gold. And
the other one that we can't really avoid, and I don't want to seem like I'm completely amazed, but the fact that Gianna is a girl. Now, this is an assumption. If you've listened to the podcast before, you'll know the ongoing joke with me reading names out of
Are you
things.
sure?
I'm not sure. I can't be sure, but I've never met a Gianna that's, and maybe it's like an Italian name for a boy. So
It's possible.
I mean, I'm just apologising now, so I don't even
right.
have to do it on the
Anyways,
next podcast.
Get yourself in.
I am sorry, but in my entire existence,
Nah, it's a girl.
Gianna is a girl.
I'm with you. I'm alright.
So, props to being 11 and props to not being scared to get out there and do that. I just thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
Good on you, Gianna, and thanks so much. It's just nice to know that people are appreciating the content, and also that we need to really make sure that we keep a cap on what we say.
Yeah, totally.
Cecile, that's how I'd pronounce it. Cecile from Greenland. This is another problem I have. I get emails and comments and stuff from all over the world, where every different name is pronounced differently. So I'm calling this Cecile from Greenland. She writes to say, I just want to thank you for a great podcast. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Cecile. I just finished listening to your last episode. She said she was saving it for a rainy day, but she didn't quite get a rainy day, but her friend was supposed to come and visit her from the capital, and the flight got cancelled because of storms. So she thought it was a great day to put on the podcast. And of course, you probably need a whole day, don't you? Really? I mean, if you put in breaks, grabbing some food, grabbing another coffee, sitting back down and
sunset,
press and play again, that's a day gone. And a good day at that. Day well spent. Now, listen to this. This is what just... You're the reason I'm gearing up for my first multi-day solo hike. I have no trouble doing day hikes by myself, but multi-days is always in the company of friends. I've been a bit weary about doing it myself, but hearing about your adventures, trips, meeting snakes and such, it hit me that the most dangerous animal I'll meet are humans, in brackets, and hikers are mostly nice people in my experience. Yeah, you're probably right there.
Probably right.
We've only met a couple of strange ones.
Yeah.
Her mission for 2021 is when she gets back to Denmark, she'll start prepping for her first multi-day solo hike.
Oh wow.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
I was talking to Craig about this yesterday. I said, you got to be careful that you're not producing content like this just for the sake of your own ego, but to hear that these people are benefiting from the knowledge, these people are building their own passions and drive to get out there and do stuff, is it's humbling. And I like I said to Craig, did I not? I said that's the reason that we have to continue, is because we almost have a duty now to try and introduce more people into the wilderness.
Yeah, it's rewarding, and it's good sharing this stuff with others to realise that there are people that are getting
just like you,
getting to the next level with this stuff.
That's a fantastic point, mate.
Yeah,
that's a fantastic point, that these people writing in are beginners. It's okay if you're a beginner and listen to this podcast. We don't consider ourselves beyond intermediate, I would think.
Yeah.
If you ask me seriously, I'd say we've still got a lot to learn, but We've just done a lot of stupid things and not died.
That's it.
Hence
That's
the
it.
name
That's
Hike or
where it
Die.
starts.
Cecile very kindly signs off. Thank you for all your humour. We're actually not humorous people. Everything we say is 100% serious, so not sure about that. Great stories and interesting guests. Take care in these difficult times. Cecile, in brackets, female.
Oh,
So,
I love it.
Thank you very much.
That's great. She did that.
Yep, I'm having a sip of my coffee just to let that sink in.
Cecile or Cecily? Cecile.
At least I know we're talking about a she. Hey mate,
Yeah.
do you mind if I steal a dash of milk off you?
I was going to say that it's
Please?
right there. You can
Yeah, it
reach
saves me
Don't
mucking around
don't.
with mine. We've got another cool email there.
That'll be nearly done, and then open that one.
Okay, I might not need much.
No, go for it. That was like nothing there. Go for that.
Yeah, we got an email from Bjorn. Bjorn from the Netherlands sent me an email.
That's good.
I'm just trying to manage putting a dash of milk into my coffee, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, that sound that's the sound of milk
No
pouring
good.
over the ground.
All over the ground.
They don't make those things to pour. They make those things to waste, so you have to buy another one.
Yeah.
Let me see if I got enough milk. Oh, not even close.
Get
I'm
some.
feeling like I need some today. There we go.
Go for it.
Okay. In these awkward pauses, guys, just enjoy the serenity. There's a few magpies. There's a type of bird that was... One of their babies was doing a call.
Oh, little
Just-
snake. Look,
Oh, wow.
see it climbing through there?
That's cool, man.
I'm just
You
going to
should
go have a
film
look.
that.
I'm just
Can
going to
you
go have a
film
look
it?
at
You got your
something.
phone?
Oh, I do. I'll just grab it.
It's going up into that. I'm going to give live commentary. This, Craig, you'll start filming now, mate, so I can give commentary. Okay, Craig looked out to the right as I was kind of saying that, and it's going down off the back. It came back down off the log towards the waterfall. Can you see it? Yeah, it I think it dropped back down. Well, we'll have a look on the log in case I was wrong. I thought I saw its tail drop back down.
Halfway on and then it's gone off.
Yeah, come around this side and make sure it didn't go into that log. If it didn't, it dropped back down and went straight down towards the falls.
Mate, he's gone.
He's gone. Well, that was a bit of excitement. I can't believe, I'm just thinking now, I can't believe this is the Ross McGibbon snake photographer episode.
That's right.
We're sitting here. See, this wouldn't happen in the studio.
We just
At
had a little
least I
pause,
hope
and
it-
you said in serenity, I look around, there's a snake. But it was just moving fast, and
Yeah, he was on a bit of a mission.
we got out of the way. He's gone over the edge. Sorry, guys. I could have Instagrammed a little bit of footage, but not today.
Wow, that's cool. There you go.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, that
See
was well
stuff like
spotted. Oh, that's good coffee. That's the first time I've used that plunger. That does a good
that.
job.
Works well, yeah.
That's great. Okay, wow. Just kind of out of sorts. That's cool. That is so cool. And we've just finished reading Cecile's email that said, you guys run into snakes.
Mm-hmm,
Heck yes we do.
Heck yes, we do.
And we keep ourselves composed and keep podcasting.
Yeah. We didn't see any yesterday, but remember we heard that one?
Well,
We heard that one
and
take
that
off.
sounds stupid to some people. Oh, what, you heard a snake? The difference between hearing a snake and some kind of lizard or something is you can hear a lizard will scurry and there's a definitive kind of a pitter-patter. But with a when you hear a snake in the leaves, it's like someone dragging a power cord or a piece of rope through the leaves. It's a continuous kind of scratching sound, if that makes sense. So we were hiking down the path yesterday, And just on the edge of the path, a metre or two ahead of me, I heard that sound go away from the path. Didn't see anything, but it makes perfect sense that it was coming out to sun itself, and then heard our footsteps and did a U-turn and took off. So this leads perfectly into, as you'll hear in the podcast, is the one that snake yesterday just turned around and did a U-turn and took off before we got there, and this snake today no doubt was aware of our presence through our voice. Was checking out a hollow log, and then as soon as Craig approached, he'd kind of thought better of it and turned around and went. So it's not like these things are out to get us. But anyway, let me continue. Oh, jeez, man.
Back on track.
So yeah, Björn sent me an email from the Netherlands. He says he's been spending hours listening to the podcast, and it keeps him stoked to plan adventures outside of his own country, in brackets, the flattest part of the world called the Netherlands. I had a laugh at that. He said he recently went on a trip to France and hiked the Tour du Mont Blanc and made a film about it, and he actually sent me the link to his YouTube video and said, if you have time to watch, let me know, and all feedback's appreciated. I watched this video, Craig, and I thought, oh wow, this guy's, this is epic. Like, it's really, really good. Like, really good. I'm not just saying that. It was a really good video.
Yeah.
And I just wrote back and said, oh my god, this is fantastic, mate. Like, well done. And then I'm pretty sure after that he wrote back and said, oh yeah, oh thanks, that was my first time doing a video like that. And then all of a sudden I felt really bad, because I thought, my goodness, your skill level it took me years to get to that. Just the storytelling and the editing and all that. So well done, mate. It's a good video, and I'm definitely going to put that on the show notes for everyone to go and check out if you want to see Björn doing the Tour du Mont Blanc.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's really cool. You obviously you'll watch it as well, Craig. But
yeah, we'll check that.
It's a bit hard to show you any previews of it out here at the moment. Where's my notes? To see something. I'm in paper notes, guys. The real world. Oh yeah, I'm gonna before I get to, I got 2 bits of gear to talk about, which doesn't often come up these days, but 2 interesting things I saw. A little bit gimmicky.
Not my camp shoes.
Dude, there's really.
Okay, no, don't go there.
No, go.
No,
hey,
far out.
I'm going to get.
I was just having a joke with you, an in-joke.
You can't do an in-joke when you're broadcasting to the world.
I've got
Tell us
some
about
really,
your shoes.
really cool camp shoes. I'm not going to tell anyone what they are. I've just got some camp shoes, because we often arrive, and this was a beginner problem, was that you didn't realise you needed something when you get to camp to take your boots off and wear around camp. And I for years just walk around barefoot.
I don't know if it's a beginner problem. I think it's
stupidity.
I think it's half stupid. Well, you can't say it's stupidity, because some people will never. They'll think you're stupid for buying them. They'll think I'm stupid because I bought a pair of Crocs with me, which some people will just unfriend me right now, but they're kick-ass. Crocs are good.
Yeah.
The point I was getting to was, I remember thinking, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I had shoes to wear around the camp? And I remember thinking 2 things for years and years. 1, it takes space and weight. 2, don't be such a sook.
Oh yeah.
What's wrong with you? You're a baby. Just put your boots on and wear your boots. So for years and years, I'll leave my boots underneath my hammock or outside of my tent. And if I have to get up in the night to go to the toilet or go do some, I just put my boots on. But sometimes
they're wet.
And then I have to check them in the middle of the night for spiders and scorpions and stuff. And then the other thing is, during the day, you don't want to be wearing socks hanging around the camp, so you have bare feet, and then you want to walk back to the toilets and you got to put bare feet in your boots, but you don't want to lace them up you leave the laces. This sounds like
I've
such a dilemma, man.
It is. I've got a feeling it's just that maybe you and I missed something along the way, and everyone else is already onto it. Yeah, you got to have
possibly. Yeah, I think
a lot of people on that Tassie trip had them. Like that's what they walked around with.
Heaps of people had a pair, even if it was a pair of thongs, flip-flops, whatever you want to call them, just rubber sandals.
I pulled out these fancy Exped.
You said you weren't going to say.
I know.
Oh, you've blown it. Now people can Google Exped camp shoes and see how...
So special.
It looks like he's got a miniature sleeping bag on each foot.
I have got two little sleeping bags.
He walks around with sleeping bags on his feet. You just need one of those, you know, those kind of onesie sleeping bag suits?
Yeah, that's what I got, yeah.
You get one of those with the hood, then...
Pretty much.
Then you could put those shoes on, and then at night time you just get into bed.
Up into bed.
You don't even do anything. You just get into bed, and then when you get up in the night, you just get out of bed. You walk around with your sleeping bag on. It's great.
Anyway, no, I had some other things I'd clicked on, and then I think I had to get the shipping up over a certain price for free shipping. I went, I'll get them, and look, that's my excuse. But
I was going to say, this sounds.
I had to have an excuse.
Yeah, it sounds like a bit of a wind up here. I don't know if I 100% believe that.
Anyway, they're very comfy. They're very special. It's a luxury item. What were your gear reviews or gear issues that you've been talking about, mate?
Issues?
What are you bringing up today? You said you got things.
No, gear. There's gear. You know, like in the gear section of the podcast.
Okay. Well, it shouldn't lead with Exped slippers.
No, I'm not sure if you've ever listened to the podcast before. Sometimes we do a gear segment.
Yeah, I know. All right.
No. I don't think your shoes are part of it.
No.
That's not a lead-in.
Good.
Just for the record, you can listen back. You're the one that mentioned it, not me.
Oh, that's been new. I was just thinking if I brought any new gear.
No, I don't have anything. We'll get to that anyway. Okay, let me go through these. Jerry on Instagram sent us a message. Jerry very kindly writes to us every now and then, and yeah, kind of gives us a bit of a serve. She's great. Jerry says in this message she sent me recently, your comment on the last podcast about trying to streamline the introductory stuff made me laugh, and then she's got the 3 emojis with the crying laughing, and I thought for a second, I don't know, I don't get what's funny about that, and then I thought about it a bit more and I thought, yeah, I get it. Yeah, she knows that we could never do a short intro.
No chance.
I think it's a stab at us. It's a slap in our face. And I'll take that slap in the face.
Using her message to lengthen this section.
Yeah, so Jerry, you're actually lengthening our podcast by sending these messages in. Why you always keep sending me messages? Don't listen to that part. Don't stop sending them.
No, that's good. That's good.
It keeps us motivated. I've said this before. It keeps us on track. Keeps us knowing what you want to hear, what you don't want to hear, how much you want to hear it, and it's great. Thank you. She also says, she goes on to clarify, just so you know, I dig it. Now, she just recently sent her son off to Marine boot camp, which I said, that's fantastic. Like, you should be very proud of that. I'm sure it's a big moment, but now she's the home front's a little bit quieter because the son's off training. So she said she's grateful for the banter and conversation.
Cool. And
thanks for educating me for a couple of hours. That's very kind, Jerry, and as I said, big props to your son for his efforts as well. Okay, here's where it all started. This is just a quick one here, but full circle. Robin is where it all started. Robin sent me a very kind email. Must have been like the start of the year or something, and he just signed it off. Robin, and I jumped on the podcast and said she has sent me an email and her and all of this sort of stuff, and then months later we did a live podcast, and we broadcasted on YouTube, and everyone was jumping in with comments and questions about what they wanted us to talk about. And then Robin jumps on,
Joins the party,
which I'm hugely grateful for. It was such a good time. We need to do it again sometime. And says, and there's a comment, and it was something like Robin equals male or something. And I'm reading it as we're talking, and if you go back and listen to that episode, you 100%, there's that definitive moment where I go, oh, hang on a second, hang on, just let me scroll back in the comments. Oh my God, Robin is a man.
This
is where it all started.
I'm glad you want to relive that moment.
This is where it all started. So every time, if you're a new listener, every time you hear that, someone's signing off an email or a comment by saying, in brackets, male or female, that is a stab at me.
Yep.
It hurts my feelings.
Yep.
It'll never die.
No.
I'm going to get t-shirts made with that on.
Male. In
brackets, male. Hike or die, in brackets, male.
Male or female.
Yeah. Let us know if you want those, and I'll get them done. That's a fact.
Yeah.
He sent me this screenshot of a Salomon ad, and there's a guy with a big kind of red beard, and the hood of his jacket pulled over, and he's in the rain, and he said, I thought I recognised the beard, but I'm pretty sure it's not you, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, being a Salomon ad. I said, no, that's not me, but I did a double take on that one. But yeah, Robin, again, thanks, man, just for touching base and saying, he writes and says everything all right there in Australia. Warm regards from Sweden by Robin, the man. And everyone seems to use the laughing emojis with me. Thanks, Robin. Glad you're still out there, mate, causing me pain. This is a quick shout out as well, a very quick shout out. Roland, who kindly supplies us with all of the coffeeworks.com.au coffee, and the plunger that I'm actually using right now. It's recently had a pretty serious kind of operation on his back. He's all good and out and back, just getting back into things, but obviously it put a dampener on him getting outdoors and in his work and everything. But I just wanted to say out loud, mate, I hope the recovery's going really, really well, and I hope that it's smooth and you can transition back into getting outdoors, mate. And also thanks for the plunger. It's awesome.
All the best.
This is a fantastic one. A guy called, this is dating back a little bit now, but a guy called Geordie, and I know it's a guy. See, Geordie, I've met girls in my life called Geordie, okay? But thankfully, Geordie sent this from his Instagram, and I was able to quickly go on Instagram, and Geordie is
see a picture.
A guy, yeah. So avoiding another episode. He says he only found out about the podcast a few months back, and he's listened to every single episode, which is again, it just blows my mind. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
He says he absolutely loves it. He's been hiking, cycling, and climbing most of his life, and he's learnt so much listening to the podcast, which I still kind of think that the way people are learning is because we're saying we just made a stupid mistake, like with your camp shoes story. I think that's how people are learning. But
they're just putting it together with what they already know.
Just kind of polishing off a thought that they might have already had about something. And I guess we do give, references to other people who know what they're talking about. But either way, it's just fantastic to hear. He says he looks forward to future episodes. And
good.
Thanks, Geordie, mate. Really appreciate it. I hope that you enjoyed the last couple, and and hope that you really enjoy this one, because I know that Geordie's from Australia. Excuse me. At least I'm not coughing into a microphone tonight.
No, different.
Today, rather. Yeah, I know Geordie hikes in Australia, so the snake threat's very real, so he's going to love this one.
Yeah, true.
Thomas sent me a message again in Instagram.
Thomas Eagle.
No. A Thomas we've never spoken to.
Oh.
Just want to express my appreciation for the podcast. I'm a high school kid in the US. The podcast motivated me to get out and hike like nobody's business.
Wow.
Mate, hiking like nobody's business is beyond hiking. That's a good level of hiking. That's how we kind of hiked. Yesterday we hiked like nobody's business.
Absolutely.
We blasted past people who were hiking like they were hiking, but we were hiking like nobody's business. I reckon as we went past, that they were foreigners. I don't know if you caught their accent, but they would have said, in whatever language they share, man, those guys were hiking like nobody's business.
Nobody's business. Yeah, I like that.
And it wasn't their business.
No.
It was our business. So, good. He usually tends to get out for a couple of hours of hiking, but he's hoping to be able to hit some overnighters in the future. Thank you, guys. Again, we're talking about a teenager. Again, Craig, you got to watch your language, and we've got to watch our adult themes. Sorry about the cougar comment at the start of the show, Thomas. You won't know what that is. Don't worry about it. It just shows me the span of the demographic that we're reaching, and mate, honestly, Thomas, get out there, do it safely, do it the right way. There's a whole episode I'm sure you're familiar with on safety, and that includes telling people where you're going, how long you're going to be gone, exactly what route you're taking, and if possible, taking an EPIRB, PLB sort of thing. But it's great. I just love it. It's fantastic, mate. Get out there. Joe sent us a message on Facebook. This was a little while back, and I actually haven't got around to posting his photos on our Insta stories, but I will. He was the proud winner of a Caribbean cap that was a prize from, I think last year it was. We sent I must have sent about 10 of them around the world.
Yep.
All different continents. And he took it up to he promised, when he got it, he said, I promise you I'm going to take it on a 14er, which is a 14,000 plus feet mountain. We don't really use that term in Australia, but it's a big thing. People go and tackle all the 14ers in the country.
Oh, really?
So yeah, he said, I owe you this picture from the top of La Plata Peak.
You got it
there. I mean, you can't zoom in because it's just a screenshot, but yeah, he's sent us a few photos.
Oh, right. That's good.
As proof, wearing his Caribbean hat.
Oh, that's
good
awesome.
on you, mate. And then there's an actual video that goes with it as well of him doing a pan around, which was cool. So I did ask him if I could post that, and he said absolutely. So I will get around to it. I've been slack. Then John, who's obviously Australian and obviously very local to us, which I didn't realise. John on Facebook, check this out, Craig, and then have a look at that picture he's posted.
Okay, that's the top of Tibbergargan.
Well spotted.
And he's put like a die across the picture?
No, he's printed, I zoomed in, he's printed that out on a piece of paper or something, or stuck it on something. He's printed out our logo, climbed to the top of one of the tallest...
so he's holding that up?
Yeah. That's not stuck on the screen, I'm sure of it.
He took that
I'm
logo
90% sure.
It's like a piece of cardboard or something.
I zoomed in and it looks like it's printed paper on some cardboard or something. He's printed that out, gone to one of the highest mountains in our local region, which is a significant climb. Like, it's a good effort, right?
Yeah.
And then he's taken a photo with that in the foreground, and some of the peaks that we've, one of the peaks in particular that we've climbed. But also in the background there, we actually did a podcast intro from the bottom of that mountain, Mount Biwa. So,
and John, I've been to the top of Tibro, mate. I love it up there. It's a very special place, and good on you. Far out. That's incredible.
He also, what started that conversation was he said, well done yet again, lads. He really enjoyed that, the last episode with Dwayne Bannon Harrison on all the Indigenous stuff, which is pretty cool. So, on that note, I've had so much feedback from that around the world on that particular episode.
I was wondering how that went.
Yeah. In the same comments, Jennifer writes, "Great episode, guys. We have similar issues with the Native American culture getting lost over here in the States," and that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. Doesn't surprise me at all. But if if we're addressing things here, putting a bit of a lens on it and getting some clarity, then it doesn't. All it can do is encourage other people to ask questions and get to know their local Indigenous people. I think that's all it can do. I reached out to the Gubby Gubby people who are of this area.
Yep.
Span quite a long distance actually down to other places we hike near my place, like Mount Me and stuff as well. And just said to them, I just want to let you guys know that we're going to be hiking on your ancestral land, and just wanted to acknowledge that we appreciate it and we'll look after it. I sent them a message leading up to this hike. I don't think it takes much time. It's just a simple gesture. Jode's...
That's good.
Sorry, I cut you off there, mate.
No, that's good. And I like you going through this, personally, of course, and then because this isn't YouTube where you can go down later and read all the comments on the episodes.
Exactly.
With the podcast, you don't get this. So, you can skip through this if you're not interested. But I think it's really good to see what other people are saying about the podcast, isn't it?
I think it is, because people are bringing up points, and quite often someone will bring up a tip, like a pro tip.
Well, that's where it is, yeah.
And we go, oh, guys, we were talking about Craig's ridiculous camp shoes and how silly he looks, and someone wrote in and said, oh, you should get this brand.
Yeah.
And so, thankfully,
which is kind of like the comments.
I ended up buying the cool-looking one, and Craig stuck with his sleeping bags on his feet. Stuff like that. Really helpful. So Joe's is a long-time listener and a heavy supporter of the podcast, and he's from the UK. And again, the distance this is reaching, he says, this episode was far out. Something I've never heard before. Knowledge well shared. That's awesome. It's awesome to and you got to think that people don't have access to the to correct information. They'll see some ridiculously made documentary where they show Indigenous Australians throwing boomerangs and playing didgeridoos. Do they do that? Or movies, Hollywood movies. Do they do those things? Yes, they do. But is that the bulk of is that a large part of their culture? It's only scratching the surface. You're not even getting close. And so I think it's important, if you've got any interest, check it out.
Yeah, good.
Last but not least, I'll just swing through the Instagram comments real quick. I'm just trying to read this name. Because it's all one word. Can and the luxurious switchbacks. If you're listening, you'll know how to pronounce your own username, but
Canada?
No, can as in, stack of rocks can, the things that I hate.
Yeah, right.
So glad to have another podcast to listen to. Been missing my favourite podcast. I thought, wow, that's a big call. You obviously don't listen to many podcasts. perhaps this is the only podcast to listen to, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Also to Anna for saying, finally, man, I dare say that's going to be another sunburn for me. I think that's because Anna listens to it around the pool side, and because it goes for 3 hours.
Too much fun in the sun.
There's no way. I don't recommend that, and I will right here now say that I take no responsibility for any skin problems
Down the track.
No, it's not our fault that you do it around the pool.
Yeah.
Take a break, go inside, put some sunscreen on.
Yeah, totally.
Wear a large hat,
Mm-hmm.
a sensible hat. Get an umbrella. All of these things. I'm saying these as caveats because if ever I need to kind of defend myself, I'll just play this podcast to the judge and say, I told her, put sunscreen on.
We may need a legal team. Anyway.
I'm surprised we haven't needed one so far, and okay, let's talk about gear. People thinking, oh, get on with it. No, they're not. They're loving it. I can't scroll down my spreadsheet. I've got to flick through all of this. Here we go. Victorinox. You know, that's the old school Swiss Army knife brand.
Of course I heard
Oh,
that.
the little cross. They've recently released a new knife called the Ranger Grip 55. It's a much larger version of that kind of stereotypical Swiss Army knife. Kind of has less things, but still a significant blade. I would say it's a more useful tool to take on a hike because the blade's more of a decent size. I'm talking sort of from what I could see in the video, which I'll post in the show notes. It looks about maybe slightly smaller than this pen. So we're talking sort of a 4 inch sort of pocket knife. Much bigger, a third or a half bigger again than your typical, and a much more robust grip as well. So it's wider and thicker. It looks like a fold-out knife. It doesn't look like a Swiss Army knife. And if you're a fan of that brand, I own a couple of them actually that I keep slotted in backpacks here and there. They're good quality. It's certainly going to last you a while. It's worth checking out. It's interesting. I think I got enough knives. What a stupid comment. What a stupid comment that is. You can never have enough knives.
Has it got other utilities?
Yeah, it's got other bits and pieces.
Does it have pliers? No.
I didn't write it. No, it's not that size. It's more sturdy fold out knife than one tool fits all. It's not a multi-tool. It's not a multi-tool. That's the word I was looking for. It's by no means a multi-tool. It's just got a few extra things.
Okay.
It's good. Hear that bird?
Yeah, it sounds like he's saying something.
Yeah. Wait for it. There, right there. Not sure if you got that. It's a very throaty, guttural sound, and I only first heard this bird a few years ago on a solo hike, and it sounded like people in the distance coughing or talking or something. It kind of spooked me out a bit because I thought I was alone, but it turns out that it's a very strange bird call.
Got a plane going over.
Oh wow. Plane's not something that we see that often this year.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm suspecting that to be a smaller aircraft.
They'll be gone.
Especially out here. And the other one was, Zippo, the lighter brand.
Yeah, sure.
Zippo, the lighter brand, has the Zippo axe saw. One word.
Oh.
Axe saw. Hey Craig, grab your axe saw.
That sounds tough.
It's not hard to work out what it is, right? Are you familiar with those the best way I can describe it is either a hoop a U shape or a triangular shape handle with a saw blade
Yep.
that you can dismantle, and you
Yep.
just carry the saw blade and you fold. Yeah, you know what I'm
Folds
talking
down
about.
pretty
Yeah,
well.
yeah, that sort of thing. So what they've done is kind of cleverly. I'm not very good with all my plastics and stuff, but it's some kind of I'll use an advanced word like polycarbonate or something handle. It's not a wooden handle on this axe. It's a durable plastic handle, and then obviously the axe head. But when you put the cover on the axe head, which is also a durable plastic, it kind of clips on and locks in place. And then out of the handle, you, I think, probably unscrew or pull out the saw blade. And then if you can imagine a triangle where you're attaching it to the handle, the base of the handle of the axe, and then it's creating a triangle by going across to the cover, so the bottom of the cover, then the handle of the axe becomes the handle of the hacksaw. And when I say hacksaw, I'm talking about a saw that would take down significant branches, like big branches, anything up to sort of I don't know.
That'd be heavy though.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying it's something for hikers.
Oh, it's interesting
No,
product.
the reason I bring it up is because I know a lot of us don't just hike, us included. Sometimes we drive into campsites and spend a few days. That's where I'd use that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm sourcing...
Just to process timber.
I'm sourcing a folding saw because I think they would come in really handy if you need to process wood. More than an axe, probably, just needing a saw. And those silky ones that fold out.
Oh, the silky, they're fantastic.
They're the best.
My neighbour down the back is an ex-arborist, which is a professional tree lopper, if you're not familiar with that word. And he's got a couple of silkies he showed me, because I've got a dodgy brand saw that I use in my backyard. He showed me his silky, and it's a beautiful piece of machinery.
Yeah, that's what I'd carry if we were going to be having larger fires. And
yeah, sort of if you're on private property doing any sort of bushcraft and that sort of thing. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good good thing to carry.
That's cool. Because Silky make those big fold-out ones.
Yeah,
too,
they
the
make
triangular
ones.
ones. You can really get into stuff.
Even some of the silky hand saws are as long as your forearm, if not longer.
You can get real big.
Massive.
Yeah, that's right. But they fold out. They're really small when they fold down, pretty much,
And it's the sharpness of and the way that those teeth cut that take the effort out of the cutting. There's much less physical effort than an axe.
Mm-hmm.
But in the cool factor, you look cool with an axe. That's just a fact.
Yeah, that's what
I'm
it's
not
all
gonna
about.
lie. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Look, that's it, guys. I'm gonna now introduce the interview that we did with Ross McGibbon. He is, as I mentioned earlier, a wildlife photographer. Predominantly snakes are his passion, and any sort of reptiles. He's an ex-snake catcher, which probably sounds crazy to some people in some parts of the world when you actually think about it, but it's a job in Australia, is to get phone calls from civilians in the suburbs saying, "Hey mate, I just went out to the shed and there's a flaming snake in there." And then, people are too scared, or rather, I'm not saying too scared because that sounds wrong. It's very advisable that you would seek a professional to get something like a brown snake out of your shed, because it can kill you.
Oh yeah, look, yeah. And he talked about it. How busy he was.
Oh, at length, yeah, you'll hear. I don't have to go into detail about how busy he was when he started to take over the business. That's exactly right. That's a really good point, Craig. He's not getting one call a week to go out and remove a snake. His phone's ringing off the hook. So it's a fantastic story he tells about some of those things. But this, the unique thing about Ross is he's brought this knowledge of being around snakes, interacting with snakes, being safe around snakes, knowing their mannerisms, their nature, and then added to that his love of photography. What's cool about that is you couldn't find a better photographer. It's not like you or I deciding tomorrow that we love snakes so much, let's get into photographing snakes, because we have no idea about the intricacies of the way they move around us and interact with us, that we'd end up getting ourselves in some or in hospital, if not worse.
Yeah, you said we're going to get Ross on, and the first thing I saw was this photograph of him looking through an SLR camera at a snake that's only a foot away.
Yes, and I think I addressed that in the podcast, but that's exactly what...
I think, I'm sure we did talk about it a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
With him. And, I learned a lot. I'm sure our listeners will learn a lot. He has really, really good insight into how we should interact with him as well. He gives us a lot of that knowledge in this podcast, so that I'm looking forward to.
There's another plane. Do you think that someone's put a call out for us? Because nobody's heard from us, and our car's sitting in the campgrounds for 2 days. Maybe. Unattended, getting dirty.
Well, we don't want them. We want to stay.
No. We'll find our own way out. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, and I think as we move through life, we are given snippets of information, and this goes for every single topic in the world. Every interaction we have, every conversation we have. I was speaking to, such and such, and he said that a snake, his grandfather saw a snake and it jumped in the car and chased him around the car. Like, there's all these tall tales, but what's happening is you're ingesting that tall tale and you're putting it in a bucket labeled snake stories, or rather you're labeling it as snake information, as if it's legitimate information that you've got from a scientist or you saw it firsthand. What you don't get out of those stories is, did that person antagonize the snake? Did the person do something stupid? Was it a misunderstanding? So the snake was trying to display that it was agitated, but you've gone ahead and interpreted that as a full-blown attack. So all these things are playing into these stories, and what you're doing is you're filling this bucket with snake information, and when you see a snake, your mind immediately dips its hand in that bucket and pulls out a few of these notes, and they all say, oh, snakes are dangerous, they're going to attack you, they're going to chase you, they're going to jump out of trees, they are lurking in the woods, waiting for the sound of human footsteps.
Watch out. To
slither out and try and get you. And this is all misconceptions and fears, and I want everyone listen to this, but if you have a fear of snakes, you need to sit through this. You need to listen to this episode. Ross is so calm. He's such a gentle bloke. He's so much fun to talk to. Such a top bloke.
Yeah.
And he's very calm about the way he presents snakes, and his love of that reptile, I believe, will transcend through the podcast and to you.
Yeah.
And at least give you a greater understanding of what you are seeing when you see these behaviours in a snake. Now, Ross, this is great timing because Ross has actually released a 2021 calendar, which is all of his best shots. And it's not just snakes, it's a few reptiles as well. Fantastic shots from his library in this 2021 calendar. I ordered Craig and my calendar last week. It's already on its way. Buy 2, get 1 free.
Oh, you said that?
Yeah, that's what I did.
Great.
So we've got a spare. In an upcoming episode where we're in the studio and Craig and I have had time to talk about it, we're actually going to be giving that 3rd one away to a listener anywhere around the globe. So stay tuned for that in a further podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And the proceeds of that, this is where not being in a studio really hurts me. The proceeds of Ross's calendar, some of the proceeds are going towards 2 funds. I don't want to misquote those funds right now. I can't look them up on my phone. I couldn't look them up last night. I don't have them written down.
That's all right.
But just know that they're going to good local causes, but obviously by the time this airs, the show notes will be up there. There'll be links to his calendar. There will be the information there, and it's a great calendar. I can't wait to get mine and hang it up and freak out all the visitors that come to my house.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to?
Well,
listen
to this chat with Ross, and just rethink and reassess your relationship with snakes. I think it's a fascinating chat that we had, and I've rethought it. And then go on the show notes, check out his photos. They're amazing, and you will find a link to pick up his calendar for next year. I think that's a great idea. Looking forward to getting, if anyone does listen and then they write to us and tell us how it makes them feel, because I think it will touch some nerves.
That's exactly right. Just like other topics we've covered in the past have put people's mind at ease.
I think so.
Let's just jump back to Cecile's email about listening to us talk about overnight solo hiking as a woman has given her the confidence to attack it herself.
Yep.
Basically demystifying and taking away some of the silly things that your brain kind of creates. So
a lot of people directly quote snakes as one of the reasons they don't like to come out here
that's
in
true.
Australia.
That's really
in
true.
Australia.
Yeah, no, that's very, very true. People say, I don't like, why don't you hike? I don't like snakes. What are you talking about? We only saw one an hour ago.
yeah, there's none.
There's none out here. Oh, well, we've seen 2 on this trip. Look, I'm going to leave it there, guys. I know we've dragged it on a bit, but that's what I do, unfortunately. We've got a couple more. I'm always reluctant to say this because life has got in the way of us a few times, but we've got a couple more coming out before the end of 2020, and if all goes to plan, the last episode of 2020 is going to be something fun, very different, enjoyable. I won't let the cat out of the bag and let you know what that is until we've got it solidified a bit. That's a really unusual saying, isn't it? I don't know if that's universal across the world, letting the cat out of the bag. I don't have a physical cat here now. I don't have a bag with a cat in it. It has nothing to do with what we're doing in the podcast. I don't know why the bag is bestowed upon me all of a sudden. And I don't know why it's a cat.
How many cats have you got?
I got a few. There's a few cats. Yeah, but let's leave it at that. Look up cat out of the bag if you're from, I don't know, another country. Thank you very much. We're going to enjoy this perfect day here. I just heard a currawong, which is a bird in a tree, giving us a little call. Perhaps we'll just leave a few seconds of silence here, Craig, and then go into the interview with Ross.
Okay.
Signing out. Thanks, guys. I love you. Enjoy. Ross McGibbon, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Craig, Tom, how are you, fellas?
Absolutely fantastic. How about yourself?
Good.
Yeah, going great.
You good? You were all the way over in Perth. Actually, is that north or south of Perth where you are?
I'm up in Exmouth at the moment, which is about 1,300 k's north of Perth.
That's a lot north.
Oh yeah,
it is a lot north, and it's great this time of year because the sun's shining and it's quite cold and rainy back in Perth.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have picked Perth to be like that. But I guess when you look at the map of Australia, it does sit quite low compared to, like, it's not the opposite side of Brisbane, is it? It's lower than that.
It's lower than that. You're probably looking at similar to Sydney, and
right.
The weather's pretty similar, but we get a double whammy in winter where we get the rain and the cold. So heading up, anywhere sort of 1,000 k's north in winter's cherished.
Yeah, that's great. Good timing.
Yep.
Ross, I can't actually pinpoint when I stumbled across your work, but my assumption is that it started on Instagram somehow, and I just remember seeing a photograph of a snake, and a couple of things struck me straight away, and one was the incredible quality of the photograph to start with, and also it was in a very aggressive stance, and I thought, wow, that's just captured so many elements that I would think would be quite difficult to capture. What got you to the point where you thought, I want to pick up a camera and try and get to that level of interactivity, I guess?
How long have you got? I'll try and give you the relatively short version of how I got started. And it starts when I was a young kid. I was very obsessed with dinosaurs. Natural progression into reptiles when I realised they were, animals that existed,
Yep.
and I could actually sort of get hands on with them. And then I got into professional snake catching as an adult, and then I sort of had a side hobby of photography, and I sort of always daydreamed about being a wildlife photographer. And at different points in my young adult life, I nearly disappeared up to Darwin and decided to try and make it as a wildlife photographer or something like that. And life just kept steering me in different directions. But on the Sunshine Coast, it all sort of came together where I was professional snake catching. I met a few guys that were doing herpetological photography, which is reptiles, and really it all just sort of came together for me. That once I sort of saw what was out there and what I could be doing, I just put the passion of reptiles, photography and travel all together, and then sort of embarked on this sort of really passionate way of living from then on.
Yeah, it's not normal, Ross, but I really do like it.
It's not normal, and that's also why I like it too.
That's why it's so perfect, though. That's why it just captivated me, the first image I ever saw. So are you saying that when you initially thought that you might like to photograph wildlife, are you talking wildlife in general, and at that stage you hadn't narrowed it down to the reptiles?
Yes, exactly. Like as a young adult, I'd watch nature documentaries, and I just thought that they had the best job in the world. Traveling around the world, seeing the most fascinating animals in the wild, and for me, sort of the novelty wore off captive stuff quite quickly, and I was really drawn to the whole adventure and getting out in the wild and seeing things for real, and having it be really genuine.
Yeah.
So that always appealed to me, and I just every time I'd watch a documentary, I just envied them so much. And then probably around 2015, I just sort of said enough was enough, and I sort of changed things around in my life and really started to pursue that just as a really serious hobby. I'm a full-time firefighter, so that's my it's the way I make my living, and then this is just something I do really sort of passionately on the side.
Yeah, most definitely. Is when you were doing the snake relocating, etc., on the Sunshine Coast, was that a full-time job, or was that just like a seasonal thing that you did?
Well, it was almost the work of a full-time job, as well as my full-time job as a firefighter. So
Wow.
We worked the normal roster of a firefighter, which is 2 days on, 2 nights, and then 4 off.
Right.
So I'd be snake catching after night shift and stuff like that. If we didn't get any alarms and I got a bit of sleep throughout the night, I'd be snake catching all the next day if I had night shift that night, and then I'd be snake catching on my 4 off. And I worked between Toowoomba and the Sunshine Coast, so I'd had a really full roster because I'd work for Toowoomba snake catchers as well as Sunshine Coast
Oh,
snake
wow,
catchers.
that's a big, just for any of the listeners, that's a fairly extensive area we're talking about there. Hundreds of kilometres between the two locations.
Yeah, exactly. So I would, go and do my 4 days on out at Toowoomba, and then snake catch on my night shifts during the day, and then I'd come back to the Sunshine Coast for my 4 days off. And I started out snake catching, and then within 6 months of sort of working for a guy called Richie Gilbert. He was pretty sort of well renowned or reputable on the Sunshine Coast. He probably had the biggest snake catching business in Australia at the time, and he was at the point in his life where he was like, I really need to focus on family and have a break from this, because you're on call 24/7, and it was just overtaking his life. So he decided I was the right guy for the job, and he basically handed his business over to me to run. So between a full-time job of snake catching, firefighting, I also had the business side of things to run as well. So
That's incredible.
Yeah, I had my plate really full for about a year and a half there.
And the funny thing about that is, we were just talking about it off air before we switched the mics on, is that it turns out that through that snake catching business, I'd already seen videos of you without realizing it many, many years ago, just on Facebook. And it was only the last couple of days that it clicked that it was the same guy, or at least the same group of people that you worked for. So that's pretty cool. The world's a small place.
Yeah, it is cool that I was that you're sort of seeing my stuff as early as, I was working for him in 2015 and 16. So it's cool if you're seeing my stuff.
Yeah, I've definitely seen stuff for years from those guys. Yeah, because it's just interesting content, and just for I guess maybe some people around the world, we have listeners in every little pocket of the world. They might not understand exactly what you were doing in that role. Did you just want to unpack that a little bit for us?
Yeah, so in Australia, and particularly that southeast corner of Queensland, it's one of the most densely populated areas for snakes, or most biodiverse area for snakes. You've got between 20 and 30 species of snake, living in all different types of habitat in that area, and a lot of people get snakes entering their home because these animals are looking for resources to survive. And we, knowingly or unknowingly provide them those resources, such as, our chicken pens and the pet food and grain that we leave around. It all attracts rats and mice, and they come to our houses to seek shelter and places to regulate their body temperature. And there's often a conflict between snakes and humans, as there is a lot in different countries around the world. But it happens quite a lot in southeast Queensland, and in summertime we can sort of get about 10 call outs a day.
Is that right? I've never spoken to anybody who's done it for a job, and you always wonder, is this do they get 2 calls a week or what? So to hear 10 a day, that's just out of control.
Wow.
Well, it is, and that's the most I've completed in a day, and I'm sure there's guys that work for that business that have probably maybe done a few more than that in a day, but that's racking up, three or so 100 kilometres of running up and down the Sunshine Coast to different jobs, and it can get pretty demanding on your time when you're on call 24 hours a day, and you got to drop what you're doing and off you go. So
is it mentally demanding, or are you at a place now where you're kind of so comfortable around snakes that it's not really that doesn't factor into it?
I wouldn't say the actual relocations are mentally too demanding. What was probably more demanding was the business side of it, and the social media side of it. Like, I was really plunged into this world of social media because Richie had about 30,000 followers on his Facebook page, which he used to keep updated and educated with lots of content. And then when he handed me over the business, I not only had all of that to do,
the
in my
actual
spare
job
time
to do,
I had to film I had to get the clients or the customers to film what I was doing,
Film
so
you
that I would,
catching the snakes.
yeah, and then later I would, try and come up with an educational sort of post about that snake or about
Yep.
that incident, and then post that, and man, it was a lot of work. And then on top of that, you've got to reply to everyone's messages. You've got people texting you saying, "What snake is this?" And
Yes, that's true,
Yeah.
because in the I often did on all of those videos, I'd read through the comments and I'd often see people and I'd see responses from your Facebook page saying, "Oh yeah, it was a this and this, and it was probably a juvenile, and I did this and that." It's quite interesting, but yeah, that all takes time, and people don't really consider that.
No, it was a really demanding sort of job, and on top of that, in the year sort of that I was running it, I sort of helped build a bit more of a team, so that, because I didn't know how long I was going to do it for, but I knew I needed help, so I sort of started tying in all of the catchers that would do work for us here and there, and started building a team, and got everyone uniforms, and built the business up as much as I could for Richie while I was doing it. So yeah, it was a busy part of my life. I won't say it didn't wear me out.
It's given you some good skills though, because on that topic of creating posts that are educational, it is something that I've found. So I can't say how long I've been following you for. It's been a while, but more and more now I actually stop and read the information rather than just look at the cool photo of a snake and hit the like
cool.
button. It's
Yep.
more about, well, hang on a second, there's he's actually telling us something here. And like with anything, I think the only way to reduce fear is to educate. And I guess that brings me to the documentary, the short film that you put together, and it's for anybody. It's publicly available. We'll obviously put all the links in the show notes so you can go and check out all of Ross's stuff. But it is quite literally, I think it runs for about 38 minutes. Does it, Ross? Somewhere around there?
Just under 30. So I've
Just
tried
under 30? Yep.
Yeah, I've tried to keep it sort of bang on 30 minutes.
Cool. And you just sit
yep.
there throughout and you just get downloaded on with cool facts, interesting facts, things that you didn't know. Not just facts, but perspectives. The way that you explain how a snake might be feeling or what exactly is happening in this situation. But the beauty of it is you've got so much footage accumulated that you then go and drop this footage and say, here's what I'm talking about. This is, and I learned a lot. My two oldest boys sat down and watched it, and they were captivated the whole 30 minutes. They they loved it. And my oldest boy, he's 11, and after it, I said to him, "Did you guys learn anything?" And he said, "Oh yeah, we learned so much." And then he said, "I said I wanted to show you that because I wanted to, show you this guy who's very calm around snakes, and he's explaining to you why you shouldn't fear them automatically." And my eldest boy actually said, "Yeah, I actually do feel better about snakes now just from watching that."
Oh man, that's excellent.
Yeah,
excellent
I knew you'd love to hear that, because that's where we've got to hit it. We've got to hit the kids, man. We've got to educate the kids, and as they get up to our age, they can interact with snakes in a better way than we did. Well, not so much yourself, but I know that I didn't have much education in snakes, so it was always considered. I grew up on acreage, and it was always considered a pretty freaky experience to have one, to see one. I had one in the lounge room one night when I was young. Tiger snake. It just came in and actually went underneath my body. I was laying on my side.
Oh wow!
It went underneath between. If you're laying on one elbow, there's that triangle under your arm. It just went through that gap and went straight under the TV cabinet. And I didn't see it because I was watching TV. I didn't see it until it was about a meter in front of me. And my eyes went doo, like
Yep.
saucers. And my dad said
Yep.
he was on the couch behind me, and he said he saw the whole thing play out.
Yep.
And when it was about just at me, he went to say something, and then he bit his tongue and
Yep.
just let it play out. And that was probably a very smart move on his part.
Yep. Exactly, because if he alerted you to it, you might have moved
I
or
would
jumped
have
or
spun
whatever.
around, and it
Yep.
wasn't going
Yep.
for me. It was clearly going for the dark corner underneath the
Yep.
TV.
Yep. And when humans are still, people don't realise that snakes don't really even register you as anything until you're moving, and then all of a sudden you're a large predator, and you know, they're so close that sometimes their only option is to think they need to defend themselves. So
Yeah.
in scenarios like that, if that snake was, you know, that close to you and you moved, then it's going to get a hell of a fright. You're going to get a hell of a
Yes.
fright, and you know that's how bites occur, where the snake's terrified of its life. It sees you as a predator and it bites out in defense.
Yeah, which is understandable. And
It is, yeah.
the way that you frame that in the film is, you say that quite a few times, but it's really driving home that point that these things rather, these snakes are seeing us as these giant things.
Yep.
They don't know how to deal with it. We're absolutely massive in comparison, and they have to do something. So I liked there was bits where you were saying when people say they're chased by a snake, it's not so much chasing as it's in putting up this brave, almost like puffing your chest out, moving towards the enemy just long enough for them to take a step back, and then they turn around the other direction and take off.
Yeah, well, I try and explain it to people as simple as possible, but they may have had a similar experience even with a domestic dog, where a dog will, you know, come running up to you barking, and it looks quite aggressive and it's intimidating, but the dog is actually not going to follow through and bite you half the time. It's not really, you know, it's what it's trying to do is intimidate you, and it is a bit different with a dog because they're actually being territorial and they're defending not their own personal safety, but they're defending their territory, whereas snakes don't defend a territory. It's incorrect to call a snake territorial when they're defending their own personal safety, not a marked out territory. And it's a huge misconception in Australia, and it's just come about because of people's lack of understanding of the animal.
Yes, because if one would say that something's territorial, the next image that pops into mind is that they're extremely aggressive if you are in their marked out territory, which you also explain quite well that's not what's happening in their head at the time.
Yep. The only thing they're doing is defending their personal safety because they're looking up, seeing a large human and freaking out, thinking, oh, I've got to flee, hide, or defend myself.
Yeah. Some of those statistics, I love statistics because as long as they come from the right source, they're pretty black and white.
Yep.
And you spell out a few statistics. What's some of your favourite stats that you were telling us about in that film?
Well, the biggest one that people are probably shocked to hear is that we have, you know, an average of 2 snake bite deaths a year, which is extremely low. You know, for a country with the most amount of highly venomous snakes and even venomous snakes, our snakes don't bite a lot of people. There's research going on at the moment, and there will be more done. But the scientists and the academic community are sort of widely accepting that when snakes bite to defend themselves, they're not trying to use venom a lot of the time. It's just the fact that they are venomous, and when they do bite, you know, some of that venom can be injected, but it's sort of widely becoming accepted that they know when to use it and when not to use it. And you know, that's another great point that I hit in the film, and I show the comparison between, you know, brown snakes at feeding time, where they're extremely voracious. They fly onto that rodent. they hold on, they wrap around
It's
it, and
completely different.
it's completely different.
Completely different. And
Yep.
that was eye-opening, I must say, to see the difference in nature. Like you say, it was a completely different approach to a similar snake that you were, walking past and filming, coming at you like it was agitated. If it wanted to get you, it could have got you at any time, and that's the difference. I think is, like you said, when that you showed that rodent to that snake, it was wholly focused on exterminating it to eat it. That was it.
Yeah.
That's all it was doing, and that's not how they were acting out when they were just intimidated by you.
Yes, exactly. And you really need to sort of see that to really see the difference, because in people's mind, when they see a defensive snake, they believe they're that rat, and that snake has every intention to catch and kill them. And there is a huge disparity in the way a snake acts towards a human or a potential threat to the way it acts when it's acquiring its prey. And their abilities are used, well, basically they use their abilities to the fullest when they're acquiring prey. Otherwise they go hungry. With us, they're more interested in either fleeing, or if they have to stand their ground and defend themselves, it's quite half-assed most of the time.
Just a big show.
Just a big show, and that's what it's designed for. When animals don't see a snake and they get too close and it rears up and looks bigger than it is, and it does these mock strikes and looks really aggressive and huffs and puffs. It's all designed as a bluff to warn other predators to leave them alone.
Yeah, take a few steps back, and it works incredibly well. But it's not until you frame it like that and show the different footage that it all starts to become quite clear.
Yep. Ross, that's definitely one of my favourite parts of that flick you've put together, mate. It's really interesting to see that, and I love that. I think one of your strongest messages is that we've had it wrong for so long, and that that you must have been dealing with many misguided views from the public over the years, and you just had to sort of set us straight on some facts and put us in the picture of what these snakes are actually doing, rather than just being a threat to us. So just tell us more about where you think the snakes are coming from, and why we don't have to be so scared as we are, and running away from them as quickly as we do.
Well, first and foremost, I really encourage people to just take a deep breath when they see a snake, right, and not let their irrational fears overtake them, because if they see a snake, the first thing they think is, oh, it's dangerous, it's going to bite someone, it's going to kill someone, I've got to go and exterminate this thing, otherwise it's going to get my kid. And those things are all, they do happen very, very occasionally, but the amount that people think that it happens compared to the occurrence of it actually happening is just so different. And I just want people to try and understand these animals a bit better, see them as native wildlife, because that's what they are. They're all protected. You're not allowed, it's illegal to kill snakes in Australia, but what people do on their own property sort of goes unseen by the authorities. And I just want people to reframe the way they perceive them. I want them to go, okay, there's a kookaburra, there's a snake. They are potentially dangerous, but if I just leave that animal alone, it's probably just passing through, or, it's not this territorial animal that's going to take up residence under my, doorstep and bite me as soon as I come out. Bites are unfortunate, and they are basically accidents. The snake doesn't really want to go around biting humans. They don't stalk humans. They're simply just defending their personal safety.
And you said most of the bites are dry bites, in fact, in some ways. Is that right?
Well, I use the eastern brown snake as an example, because it is, I guess you could say, it's the deadliest snake in Australia, because it's responsible for the most amount of human fatalities. But even that is quite low. And the eastern brown snake has an envenomation rate of as low as 20 to 40%. So
Really?
about out of 10 times that it might, bite a human, it's only envenoming someone, between 2 and 4 times, and that's largely because just a venomous creature and it's biting to defend itself.
Can you tell when you look at the bite site if it's got on or not? If it's done the envenomation?
No, look, that I have to say that if you suspect you've been bitten by a snake, no matter what you think it is, no matter if you think it was a dry bite or not, like that's probably the downside to teaching people that snakes do dry bite.
Yep.
Is that you may get people not taking a bite seriously, but I 100%, have to say for the public safety side of things that if you suspect you've been bitten and you don't know, and you think it's a snake that's bitten you, then you must apply snake bite first aid and seek urgent medical attention. So,
it's good advice. Find out later that it was a dry bite. That's great. Happy days. But don't try and self-analyse it.
Mate, I'm sure we'd all take it pretty seriously. But that's...
But, there are people that don't, and they're usually the people that succumb to the venom and end up being a statistic because they didn't take it seriously. And, I just did a post about the Australian dugite, which is a venomous brown snake that we have over in the southwestern corner of WA.
Is that the little guy that was very in love with your camera?
Yep, that was the guy I did the intro and the conclusion with.
Yeah, right.
But it was that was the same type. That was there's another post of yours where he was actually, you had to drop your camera and he was checking the camera out. Yeah. Yep,
that was a dugite as well. So, the point I was going to make is that, in the last 35 years, there's only been 2 deaths from this snake, and they were both elderly women over 70 who didn't seek medical attention after they were bitten, or maybe they didn't realise they were bitten, or they, just didn't take it seriously or what have you. But you do find that a lot of the fatalities, if you can dig through the media hype and actually get to the facts, people didn't know what to do, and they didn't know how to respond, after they'd been bitten. So it's very important in Australia that you understand basic snakebite first aid and you do your utmost best to get to medical care if you think you've been bitten.
Yeah, well, mate, I definitely wanted to hit onto that today. Over the years, we've heard many different techniques for treating a snake bite, and there were some myths that were busted a long time ago, and everything from sucking the poison out.
Yeah, Craig stopped doing that now.
I've stopped doing that recently.
Yeah, he's always said, Tom, I think you got a snake bite on your leg again.
Yeah, and there was like tourniquet was definitely a no-go now in terms of really viciously wrapping tightly around the limb, and also we thought that it was all spread through the bloodstream. But can you educate us a little bit more about what to do if we are bitten and some of the best first aid treatment?
Yeah, well, let's first start with what not to do. And like you said, a lot of the old myths about snakebite treatment are fairly well disappeared, but probably the main one that sort of still hangs around is a tourniquet. People think that the venom is transported through your blood, and in Australian snakes that's not the case. What happens is our snakes only have quite short fangs, just because of their morphology. They only have quite short fangs compared to other species overseas. And when they bite you, the venom just sits in under the skin and it's transported through the lymphatic system, and that basically just goes up and down your arm under the skin. Now, it doesn't get into your bloodstream until it reaches, if you're bitten on say the hand or the arm, it doesn't get into your bloodstream until it reaches your lymph nodes in your armpit. So then it's transferred into the blood, and then that's when you're going to start going symptomatic if you've had a decent bite or a decent envenomation. So applying a pressure bandage to the affected limb or the bitten limb, what that does is it moderately compresses the limb and it traps the blood, or it retards the movement of the venom under the skin, and that's all it's designed to do. So when you're doing this bandage, if you've got one bandage, basically you're starting at the bite site and you're wrapping that bite site up with the one bandage, and then with another one you're starting at the fingers and you're just working all the way up to the top of the limb. That's if you've got two bandages. If you only have one, just start at the base of the limb or the fingers and work all the way up to the armpit. There's more to it. There is a little bit more to it, and I won't sort of go into all of it because it's a bit of a dry topic, but you can find this information just about everywhere online if you look up Australian Snakebite First Aid.
Yep.
And I have it on my website, in dot point, that people can sort of read it.
And is that where you consider splinting as well to keep the limb from moving as well?
Say that again.
Is that where you consider splinting it with something rigid or not when you're strapping it?
Yeah, well, the very important part to remember is that movement helps the venom reach your bloodstream. So retarding that movement or stopping that movement is of the utmost importance after you apply the pressure bandage, or even during the whole time you're trying not to move. And that's not just the bitten limb. You're trying to not move all parts of your body because it all helps, you know what I mean?
It's incredible. Yeah, it was something that was only in the last year or so. Craig read an article about that and brought it to my attention. But it was very, 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 very good advice, because it's a different way of reacting. It's not, I've been bitten on my arm, I'll strap it up and I'll hike out of here.
Yep.
Because that's just going to push that through your system. I think just staying put 100% and limiting your movements the way to go.
Actually, Ross, can I put you to a scenario here? And let's just imagine that you're...
As long as it's relevant, Craig.
It's kind of relevant.
Something.
I was waiting for it, and I bet I can tell what you're going to say.
Okay, maybe. Yeah.
There are two trains travelling in opposite directions.
You're out hiking with one of our listeners, let's say, just the two of you, and you might be significant distance from the car, let's say 10 Ks or maybe a couple of hours hiking back to the car. One of you gets bitten on the leg or on the leg, and you think, do you leave that person still to the point of leave them there and go and get help and bring paramedics back to them, or do you try and get them to the vehicle to get them to the hospital quicker?
No, you would if you're lucky enough to have two people.
Yep.
I actually thought you were going to ask me if you're by yourself and you're out in the bush.
I thought about that, and I thought, well, I'll ask you that too, but there's not much you can do except hobble back to the car, right?
well, look, I'll answer both for you.
Okay.
So if you've got help, any way of reaching help, then help comes to you. So
Gotcha.
What you would do in that scenario is you would basically lie down or sit against a tree, get comfortable, because you're going to not be moving for a very long time.
Yes.
Sorry. And your number two, he or she is going to apply that pressure bandage, and then they're going to go for help,
right,
and leave you there with strict instructions not to move. Basically not even turning your head. You're just going to lie there and try and be as still as possible.
It's like a statue. That's the clear advice I really wanted from you, mate, because I could imagine that you'd sort of debate what to do, and at that point, that's the way to go, isn't it?
Yeah, it is the way to go. So that bandage and your immobilization is the most important part, and that's going to save your life. And people hear horror stories about Australian snakes killing people within 10 minutes, 30 minutes and this sort of thing. And that sort of stuff happens. Like, it has been on record, like the eastern brown snake has killed someone in less than 10 minutes, or they've collapsed in less than 10 minutes. And that's because that person continued, freaked out, continued to do whatever they were doing, and that venom was able to get into that system. And we also don't know what pre-existing medical conditions, and there's about 30 major things that affect how quickly you can succumb to venom. But just generally speaking, people it's best that they don't freak out. A lot of the times it's going to be a dry bite. Doesn't matter. You do the first aid, you keep calm, and you've got hours and hours, before you can potentially, generally speaking, before you could potentially start to feel the effects. It really depends on how big the dose was and what the snake was and how well it got you and all those sort of factors. But you do have hours. And for example, I was bitten by a mulga snake or a king brown, and it only got one fang in. It was a small snake. I did textbook first aid, had the bandage on for 7 hours in the end. They took the bandage off, and I had received some venom, but it stayed well trapped in my limb because I did everything I should have done. And I didn't end up needing anti-venom in the end. So a combination of a small snake, a small dose of venom, and really good first aid meant that I didn't even need to receive anti-venom.
And a healthy, a healthy individual to start with as well.
Yeah. And look, if we actually nutted it out, there's probably 30 other factors that come into play here. But getting back to your scenario, people think, no matter what, they might have heard horror stories, so they just freak out, and that might make someone run to the car, and that's actually going to be a lot worse for you. So in that scenario, stay put. If you're by yourself and you cannot reach anyone via mobile phone, by shouting out, by any other means possible, you would straight away apply that pressure bandage to the affected limb, and then you would calmly move to where you can get phone reception or the first bit of contact with another person to get you help, and then you stay put until help comes to you. Remembering that moving is your enemy.
Yeah, we're pretty big on, with our listeners pushing the PLBs, the personal locator beacons. I think that they're just a must-have, not for this reason, but for 1,000 other reasons, of which this is one. And that's going to give you the ability to not have to worry about phone reception and administer the first aid, pull that out of your pack, hit the button, have a sip of water, and just relax and wait.
Yep.
You could even do that while you could still have a second player moving back to the trailhead to meet with authorities, but you're still there with the locator beacon, so it's all good.
Well, that's what I would advise too, because if that person gets flustered and sort of takes wrong turns or whatever, and then it has a delay or they cannot, find you again, you've got the backup of the locator beacon.
Yeah, that's a really good
off.
point too. Or if they get injured on the way, I know that if I was moving back to a vehicle, if Craig was injured, I'd probably be pretty reckless, and there's always a chance of
Tom gets lost all the time.
I get lost. Not so much that, but I'm moving at such a clip, mate. I'm moving so trees are a blur.
Hey, Ross, before we move on from that scenario, do we have to identify the snake?
No. So a lot of people used to think that they must kill the snake and then bring it into the hospital, and that then they would be able to identify them. But the hospitals use a combination of tests. They test your blood, they test your urine, they narrow it down to which snakes are in the area and what effects, clinical effects you're presenting with, and they work it out. And if they still can't work out which, anti-venom to give you, they'll give you a broad spectrum one that covers, all of our dangerously venomous snakes in Australia. But if they've also done away with these venom detection kits, which I won't go too much into, but they used to swab the bite site.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that conversation. Yeah.
And they just sort of they were only really accurate some of the time, and they were coming up with false positives, and they were wasting time and things like that, and they were expensive, and they basically, hospitals around Australia went, well, these aren't good enough and accurate enough to keep in service. So what they do now is they've got toxicologists on the phone, and we have some of the best medical care in Australia, and some really, really smart people out there that will figure out what you need when you go to hospital. So
hypothetically, sorry, hypothetically speaking, if someone had a high whiskey content in their blood, like, that's not going to affect the reading or anything, is it?
Well, look, if
I'm asking for a friend. He's right there.
For a friend.
I'm looking out for you, Craig.
Surely that's going to help with the recovery.
He's
Look,
immune.
if you got some substances in your system, it's probably best to let them know.
Remember that.
I don't think you're going to get in trouble for it in a life and death situation.
Yeah.
All right, noted. For
Just
those,
helps me keep calm.
good for those listeners out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we've talked about us, people being attacked by snakes, but back to kind of the statistics. Do you know or do you have any data or any intuition as to what is killing our native snakes, our native reptiles? I mean, obviously, there's unfortunate scenarios like everyone's seen a dead snake on the side of the road because they're either trying to cross or they're trying to get warmth or a combination. Then you probably have things like domestic dogs. But outside of that, is there anything that perhaps people like us who don't know anything about anything might be surprised at?
Well, if you're asking probably what's the biggest threats to our wildlife, it's most definitely land clearing, the introduction of feral animals, and their sort of ability to wipe out native wildlife. Like cats are just one of the most destructive forces out there. There's estimates of between at any one time in Australia, there's estimates of up to like 6 million feral cats, and you can imagine they're eating up to or killing up to 30 reptiles alone a day in some areas. And can you imagine 6 million feral cats going through 30 reptiles a day plus whatever other native marsupials and birds they can get their hands on?
Yep, and that the rate at which they breed is far beyond a reptile, I would imagine.
Yes. So dumping cats because they have a litter out in the wild is a huge no-no. People just don't understand the natural world, and they just, for whatever reason, decide they don't want their pet cat to have a litter, and if they do, they don't want it to be their headache, and they go and dump them out, at the local truck stop or something just out of town. And I've actually picked up a kitten in that scenario, so that's where I'm sort of quoting that from. But things like that, letting cats go feral and then allowing them to breed, and even domestic cats are killing a lot of our wildlife as well.
Yeah, well, that's a good point too. It's not just the completely wild ones. It's the people that don't contain their cats, and they are absolute masters. Absolute masters of, they're, I think, if not the only, one of the only animals that can kill an echidna, and it's because they're able to flip it on its back and then attack the underside of it. Yeah,
they're extremely smart. They're extremely good at what they do, being a predator. It's in their instinct, and I like cats and I like wildlife and I like dogs, and I'm an animal lover for all of them, but because I love all of them, I understand the relationship between domestic animals and wildlife, and everyone wants to believe that their cat can do no harm and they're the cutest little thing on earth, but it's hardwired into them to stalk prey and kill wildlife. And if they're doing it for fun because you're just leaving them outside during the day and not knowing what they're up to, then it's a really irresponsible thing to do. So I do encourage people to keep their domestic cats inside. It also keeps them safe, fighting with other cats and getting eaten by dogs and hit by cars and all of that stuff. And if you...
Oh, sorry, I might have missed a memo, but are a lot of the snakes endangered? I know they're protected in Australia, but are they endangered as well?
So protected just means that we can't can't just do what we will with them and kill them and
That's right.
you know, catch them and keep them as our pets and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
they're just protected under the Nature Conservation Act as native wildlife that needs to be left in the wild and left alone.
Yeah.
A lot of our snakes aren't endangered or anything like that. There are some species that are of reptiles that are endangered, but you know what's happening is it's a multi-pronged attack. We're clearing lots and lots of land for farmland and urbanisation and spreading, which the average person can't do a lot about. Like if they do have some pull or some way of slowing down or just managing land clearing better, then I encourage people to do that. But you've got, you know, all of this habitat destruction. You've got feral animals like cats, dogs, foxes. You know, even pigs destroy habitat, such as, you know, the riverbanks.
Yep.
You know, that's where turtles lay their eggs, and a lot of animals lay their eggs. And then, you know, you got pigs in there rooting up everything and degrading the landscape.
Yeah, and then the flow-on effect of that is the silt levels in the water go too high, and it affects the fish life as well.
And I, you know, I could go on and on and on, but I don't want to come across like I'm, you know, a hippie sort of, you know, banging on about my cause sort of thing. But what I want people to do is just take a little bit more of an interest in the native world, how it works, and how we impact the native world, because Australia is so famous for its wildlife and its biodiversity, and we really do have some spectacular species of wildlife that are only endemic to Australia, meaning that they only occur here. And that's going to be gone one day if we don't sort of look out for it. And snakes are part of that. I touch on it in my doco, where a lot of people do not understand that snakes are part of a bigger ecosystem and part of the food chain.
Yes,
you know,
yes, please talk about that. That was fantastic.
Yeah. So you get comments, a lot of comments by people just going, why can't we just get rid of the venomous snakes and, you know, keep the non-venomous ones, or I don't understand snakes. They, you know, I'd wipe them off the planet if I could, and they don't understand that they're part of the food chain. So they're a middle order predator. They sit around the middle. They're not top of the food chain. They're not the bottom. But what they do is they provide a food source for animals above them in the food chain, and they also keep in check populations of other animals. And it's a intricate, you know, interlinked system that we have huge effects on when we start meddling with it. And you know, really, I want people just to understand that they're native wildlife, they belong there. And, you know, if you have a new housing estate go in and we move into that housing estate, and then people freak out and get disgusted that they've got a snake that's sort of slithered into their yard because, you know, 6 months ago that was bushland and now it's a housing estate.
Yep.
You know, I'm not saying that all has to stop, because it's just what we need to do to continue our species, but at least cut the wildlife some slack and understand that they're coming back into your yard because they're trying to find resources to survive, because the more we spread, the less their resources effectively get.
Exactly. I mean, it really, and it's the way people perceive different species as well. So, for example, you know, to that point, in my street, I drove down my street today, and there's a whole mob of kangaroos that hang around near the local park. Mm-hmm. And that's because, well, they're comfortable there, but also a lot of the land has been taken away, cleared away, but they're quite comfortable in this little bit of bushland, and they hang out in this park, and people don't really bat an eyelid because it's cute, cuddly kangaroos. But if that was a whole bunch of snakes hanging out there, people would be up in arms saying, "Oh, that's not right," you know. But they're essentially forcing them there.
Yeah, so, you know, have a little bit of empathy for you know, wildlife. They're doing their best to survive in a landscape that is constantly changing. You know, mostly by us, or at the cause of us. And I just want people to sort of reframe the way that they perceive snakes as these creatures that, yes, some of them do possess venom, but they're not intentionally trying to use it on people, and they really only need that venom to acquire prey and digest their prey, and that's what they're actually trying to use it on, not humans.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good takeaway, that one.
Such a great message, mate. That's really, really good. And listen, I'm sure you've got a great audience here of people who do love nature, love getting out into the bush and want to protect, and you know, we value it. And I see a lot of your conservation attitude is fantastic. And with the snakes and reptiles that you relocate, can I ask a question on how far away do you take them from where you catch them? I know that they're not territorial, but they have a sort of a land where they like to roam.
Home range, that's called.
Home range for the snake.
Yep.
And then do you think it affects them if you take them out of that range, or what's your approach to relocating them?
Yeah, without a doubt. So if I do have any sort of snake catchers that are getting into snake catching, and they might be able to take this away, but they did a study over here in Western Australia where they got about 10 or 11 dugites, which are one of our highly venomous larger brown snakes over here, and they translocated them a range of distances away from where they were caught. And they radio tracked them and decided to see what would happen to these snakes, and unfortunately all of them died through to increased predation, getting hit by cars, and it's believed that basically the snake will try and get back to somewhere that's familiar within its home range. So if you take this snake more than 500 meters away, you're starting to probably severely affect its survivability in the wild. So as a snake catcher, what I would do is you've got to come up with a happy medium between what your customer who you're removing it from their house is happy with, and what's not going to affect the snake's survivability. So as a snake catcher, what I would do is I would jump on Google Maps and I would look for the nearest bushland to where I got that snake from, because snakes are all through urban environments and bushland, and they do their utmost best to keep out of our way. And just because a snake has been caught once in your house or your yard doesn't mean that if I drop it 100 meters away, it's ever going to come back. Being caught is quite a stressful thing for a wild animal. So it's not going to be in a hurry to come back to where it remembers that it just had a stressful experience. So I would hardly ever, I think in the 5 years that I've been snake catching, I've only ever had one guy report a carpet python coming back, and it was of such similar size and that we couldn't really say for sure whether it was or wasn't the same snake. But basically, to answer your question, you've got to keep the snake as close to where you found it, but get it back into native bushland and away from.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I wasn't quite sure what you'd say there. And do your customers, I suppose, ever freak out that you say, "Hey, I'm only taking it, 300 meters away"? Do they start to sort of?
Well, what I'll do is most of the time I don't have all day to sit there and explain what I've just explained to you guys and more. Sure. So I gauge the person, and what I say is, look, this is a non-venomous species. Do you mind if we just drop it? Yeah, if they've got bushland down their backyard, I would say, look, do you mind if we just put it back in the bush? And a lot of the times, people are happy with that. If it's a venomous species, obviously, I don't even ask that question and I take it away. And if they ask me where I'm going to drop it, I say, look, far enough away that it's not going to come back, but not too far away that it will be out of its home range and it'll probably die trying to get back.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
That's tough. That's fascinating. Yeah, right.
But with the amount of young snake catchers, watching videos like my videos and all the other sort of snake catchers before them, there's been, when I was in southeast Queensland, there was such a spike in young guys wanting to do this profession for a number of reasons that that piece of information could be really useful for one of those people. wants to get into snake catching, or even if someone is happy to handle snakes, they might keep them. And if they find a wild one and they want to drop it back in the bush, it's handy to know that you can't drop them, too far away from where you got them from.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
Yeah. Hey, sorry, Ross. If you were someone who wanted to learn how to handle wild snakes, I guess you'd be really reluctant to sort of encourage anyone to do that, and there must be this fine line between sort of telling people that they're quite, there's not such a scare factor with snakes, and then actually you might be encouraging them to approach snakes as well. So I'm sorry, that was what I'm trying to get to with that question.
Do you need another beer, mate?
Tom's going to laugh at me right now. I'm sure he is.
He knows you already.
Yeah.
It'll probably be a better question if you have a beer.
You're not going to spell out to us right now how to approach a wild snake and handle it, because I think that's irresponsible of you, right? To sort of produce
You're
that.
Right.
Present that thought into our mind of how we can do that. But what if we wanted to learn that? I mean, what's your advice there for someone who wants to overcome their fear and be able to handle a wild snake if they... I don't know why they would want to, I suppose, but...
No, Craig, it's a great question. It's a great question because...
It wasn't put out too well. I'm really sorry about that.
I got there in the end. I got
geez. We might have to play that back to him.
No, I got there, and it is a really good piece of information to get out there. And if you are interested in becoming a snake catcher, either as in a professional sense to do it as a job, or you may be one of these people that live rurally and you don't have the option to call a snake catcher. So you might go, well, I'm interested in snakes. They interest me enough. I'm not terrified of them, and I might go and do a venomous snake handling course. People that want to complete that training just need to reach out to their local venomous snake handling course provider. And if you Google, venomous snake handling courses and then your location, I'm sure that these guys are all over the internet, and you'll be able to track one down in your sort of nearest major town. And that's one way you can do it. I don't recommend sort of just going out there and trying your arm at it, because it is dangerous. There's a lot to learn. Even when you do your courses, there's still so much to learn. So don't think that after that you'll be good to go. But another handy piece of advice I sort of pass on to younger people or people wanting to get into it is try and find someone that has a collection of venomous snakes, or even just a couple, because any experience is valuable experience. So if you can get over to these people's houses, like me, for example, when I was working in Toowoomba, I called up the local snake catcher, and he also ran a reptile display business where he'd go and educate kids in schools or daycares and stuff. So he had 50 or 60 snakes at his residence. So I would go over there, I'd offer to clean the cages, I'd pull the reptiles out, I'd play with them all, and that would just add to your experience. So that's an idea as well.
I think I'm a pretty big believer in it, and whether it's scientifically proven or not, I wouldn't know, but I'm a pretty big believer in when you're around any kind of wildlife, if you're kind of emitting that fear, perhaps it's not detected, but you're going to move differently. Either way, you're going to react differently to a situation. So if you're very calm around snakes because you've spent so much time around them, you're not going to make as many, if any, foolish kind of movements, and you're going to have a better understanding about their reactions, aren't you?
Oh, it is literally like anything. If I gave you a camera and said off you go, you probably wouldn't know what to do with it unless you had some sort of prior experience, training, exposure to working with cameras. It's the same with snakes or any other wildlife. And
I don't know. I don't think I've had my my camera try and bite my face off before, but yeah, I guess it's the
Well,
same.
You've never jumped off a rock and it's flown up and hit you in the face.
No, I'm just kidding, mate. No, I totally get your point. I think for the layman, there's this. They're just thinking, "Wow, it's just such an incredible." The way that you interact with these things is incredible.
Yeah, I think that's what we should have a quick chat about, mate. Is some
I
of the
definitely want to get to that.
Yeah, definitely want to talk to you about some of the images of you getting right down up close and personal with a camera in your hand, looking through a lens, mate. That's
exactly what struck me the first time I saw that. I pictured in my head, Ross, that there's this guy, because the first time I saw your shots and then I went to the rest of your gallery and I thought, oh, wow, it's pretty good these days. You can have one of those massive 2 foot long kick-ass zoom lenses, sit back and get these awesome shots. And then I think I was looking at your website and there was a photograph of you laying down flat on your stomach with your elbows just flat on the ground, and this snake is rearing up in front of you. And that's when I said, that's exactly when I said to Craig, check this out. We've got to talk to this dude. This is ridiculous.
What is he doing?
What is going on here?
Well, firstly, I try and disclose to everyone when I do those videos and when I show any footage. Usually I try and keep myself out of it, but people do want to see the behind the scenes footage. They want to get to know the person behind the camera and that sort of thing. And whenever I put any of that footage in there, I sort of disclose that I really don't want people trying to do what I do without the training and experience, because I don't want young kids looking at it and going, oh yeah, it's okay to get that close to deadly snakes or venomous snakes.
That's a really good point.
That's what I sort of had to get out of the way to start with, and then then what I do is I use a wide angle lens, and I get as close to the subject as possible, and that really depends on the individual temperament of the snake, and that's something that I've gotten very good at judging. And if the snake is being too defensive, then I'll take into account the length of that snake and how venomous it is and all that sort of thing, and I'll sort of keep back a bit, and I might use a bit of zoom on my lens, because I use a 17 to 35 mil Tamron, so I've got a little bit to play with there.
That's not big enough, man.
It's not big. It's not big enough for everyone else, but but it's what I like to work with, and the closer I can get, the better. And I really, really rely on my judgment for that, and it's something that you can't just go and do a venomous snake handling course and then jump right into. But I also use other things to keep me safe, and I do sort of push the boundaries a little bit, but I've been doing it for long enough now that I like to think I know what I'm doing, and I'm sure I'm going to be fine.
In terms of the, and you demonstrated this quite well in the video we keep referring to, and you also said earlier in the podcast, if you're completely still, they don't understand that you even exist. So when you're working that closely with these snakes, does the camera become how would you say it? Is the camera become the predator in this case? Are they focused on the camera as being the thing that's agitating them, or are you attached to the camera?
It can be a combination of both, but usually when I get so close, like when you see me so close to these snakes, the snake has already decided that I'm not a serious threat. So the snake is calming down. It's realizing that I'm calm. I'm working with that particular individual so that it stays as calm as possible. I stay as calm as possible, and I move extremely slowly so that it doesn't get frightened and intimidated by my presence, and then that allows me to sort of get closer and closer. But the camera, it doesn't matter. The camera, me, anything foreign and moving in front of it, it has the potential to strike out at. And sometimes I'll have a welding glove on my hand, and I'll hold that out to the side, and that'll capture the snake's attention. And one or two times the snake latches onto the welding glove or something like that. But I know that what size that species' fangs are, and I know what I can get away with, and that's sort of how I do it. But
it's a calculated risk in every. It's calculated. Different every time, I'm guessing.
And for our listeners, I mean, Ross is definitely within striking distance.
Oh yeah, you see one of these photographs of Ross in action, and it's like 30 centimeters.
Some of the best photographs of wild snakes I've ever seen. And do you use these photos for anything other than Instagram? I probably should have.
Oh, Craig, let me just segue. You can actually purchase Ross's images.
Oh, okay. Okay. Tell me, Tom.
You can get them on canvases. You can get them framed. You can select a whole bunch of stuff from his website.
Wow.
And I'm telling you right now that listeners are going to have a look at your stuff, and they're going to be as blown away. It's not just snakes either. There's some really cool reptiles, but it's the positions that you get these snakes in that blows my mind. That they're so attentive, and you get right up in their face. As you say, you're obviously not trying to get them agitated or anything, but at the same time, you're getting these reactions as if they're looking straight into the lens, and that's what is the true beauty of the images come out when it's almost like a little window into what it would be like to lay on the ground in the dirt like you do.
Yeah, well, that comes with that, getting on their perspective, because if you think about the way humans view the world, it's from varying in height, but it's from roughly around 6 feet high. And when you look down on a snake from 6 feet, you get a perspective of what it would be like for a human. But when you lay down and you're on that snake's level, then you can see what potentially an animal of similar size would see if it came across this animal. So
it's a very good point.
Yeah, that's the way I like to portray them, and getting that low also helps me get the background in, which is what I really try to do to tell the story of where that snake lives. So if you know different habitat types, and you guys might know a few from being avid sort of outdoorsmen, you can sort of see that, that's the desert death adder, and that spinifex behind it, and or that's a coastal taipan, and that's tropical woodland behind the coastal taipan.
Most definitely.
It's
not a picture of a snake. It's you've captured the entire world that it lives in as well.
Yep, and that's sort of what I try and do, because I was very drawn to landscape photography and sort of travel photography when I started out. And when I got into reptile photography, I didn't sort of want to do what everyone else was doing, where they would just sort of get up on a 45-degree angle and shoot down on the snake, and they would get all the features of the snake, and they were perfect for snake identification books. But I really wanted to tie in. I thought, would it be great if you could get a landscape photo with that beauty, but the snake in it? So that's what I try and do.
You know what? It just occurred to me what they're like. Are you familiar with what a diorama is?
A diorama.
Yeah, diorama is when, say, for example, you make a model. Mm-hmm. Let's say you make a model of a old horse and cart.
Yep.
A scale model, and instead of just sticking that on a bookshelf, you actually make a little piece of dirt, and then you might have miniature trees and a broken fence. That's what it just reminded me of as you were talking. Then I was looking at a couple, and I thought they look like miniature worlds, as if you've got all of this stuff and positioned it so perfectly, and then got this fake snake that nobody could ever get that close to, and just laid it in there absolutely perfectly. So it really is a moment in time in the life of one of these little buggers.
Yep. No, that's great feedback, guys. I appreciate you sort of going into that much depth and sort of, really sort of looking into my work that much and giving me that feedback.
No, it's fascinating. I think what you're doing is bringing. Now, I don't think until a few years ago, I don't think I ever called a snake beautiful until, the more and more time we spent outdoors and the more interactions I had, I encountered a enormous python. I will send you a link. I think even you'll appreciate this. It's somewhere in the vicinity of 18 foot, maybe going to 20, somewhere around there.
What location?
Mount Me, so up the back of the Aguilar Ranges there.
Yep.
And I was hiking by myself, and I climbed down onto this ledge, and I was taking photos for about 25, 30 minutes off this ledge.
Yep.
Which was probably about 3 meters by 3 meters.
Yep.
And then how you look at the back of the camera to review your images?
Yep.
You sort of hold it down around your waist, and I was reviewing images, and then I looked over the top of the camera and there was a massive balled up python there.
Yep.
Just looking at me the entire time I'd been there. And I did the kind of breath thing. I went, and then just, it was very early in the morning, so the sun hadn't even hit him yet. He was real slow. I backed my way out of there, took a couple of photos. I went for a hike for about an hour or so, and on the way back I checked in, and he was just coming out into the sun and started doing this big circle around, getting his whole body out. And I've got a lot of film footage of that. And I remember I looked at this thing and the sun was shining on it, and there was blue, like a dark blue shimmering through its skin. And then I just remember that moment. That's when I thought that this thing is beautiful.
That's great.
It was majestic, and the way that it moved its head and the way that it moved its body, I was captivated. I sat there for near on an hour just watching this thing from the ledge above and just talking to it, and just I later that day I saw another two. They must have been really on the move.
Yep.
But nothing was as big as this thing. I've never seen a snake in captivity or out of captivity as big as this snake, and it was in pristine condition.
Yep.
So I'm going to send you a link to that video.
That's great, man, and you've just explained what can be achieved if you sort of increase your understanding about snakes. Your fear will naturally decrease the more you understand about them. And then hopefully, if you're interested in wildlife and the outdoors, you can get to a place where when you see a snake, all these irrational fears don't take over and you lose your mind, and you can actually sit there and observe it. And as long as you're not provoking a defensive reaction from that snake or making it feel threatened, treat it as any other piece of wildlife and really appreciate the moment, because you can walk into a zoo and see a captive snake, or you can have moments like that you'll remember forever.
Yeah, no, it's definitely stuck with me, that one. Speaking of the nature of snakes, not only do you have absolutely fantastic photographs of these tiger snakes from, is it pronounced Karnak Island?
Mm-hmm.
But you spoke in your video of the nature of the Karnak Island tiger snake was completely different, maybe not completely different, but largely different to a mainland tiger snake of the same kind. Is that correct?
Yeah. So they're the exact same species, but they've been isolated over there on that island, and they haven't had the predatory pressures that the mainland snakes have had. And they just get to cruise around over there. They don't have anything really harassing them other than the mother and father seagulls that are trying to protect their chicks from being eaten by the tiger snakes. But they're just. I was just really taken back by how placid in nature that they were. I probably shouldn't say this, but I picked one up and I was just sort of handling it, and I could just tell from the way I interacted with this snake during the photography session that this thing was just the biggest chiller in the world. It had no interest.
Nothing to worry about.
It didn't show one piece of defensive behaviour, and I entirely don't recommend free handling or picking up venomous snakes.
But I think our
all.
listeners are educated enough to know you're not only a professional in that field, but you're spending a large portion of your life with these creatures. So I think we need to take that into consideration.
Yep. Yeah. So does that? Yeah. I don't know.
I just blew my mind that the same species has a different trait based on how it's evolved on that isolated island. Because it kind of brings me. By the way, those Karnak Island tiger snake photos are absolutely fantastic. In what you were saying before, they're just showing that beautiful coastal sand and grass and cliffs and sky in the background.
Cheers, Tom.
Captures everything, mate. Because you've been overseas and interacted with other snakes, right?
So not as much as I'd like. I've been hitting Australia pretty hard, but last year I went over to Arizona and got to go to the Arizona desert and photograph a lot of rattlesnakes and a few different species of reptile.
Those things are insane,
Great
man.
photos.
They look scary too, hey?
Well, yeah, they have a pretty intimidating defensive behaviour, but when you really start to understand rattlesnakes, they're actually even, I would say in many cases, less dangerous, in nature to our snakes, because they will just sit there and hide from you because they don't want to be detected. And then if you get too close, many of them will use their rattle and warn you that they're there, which is saying something in itself. This animal has devised an evolutionary warning device to warn you that it's venomous and dangerous.
Hey, I'm over here.
And to say, don't step on me, and you think about larger mammalian, animals or just anything larger that's going to step on those snakes. Their rattle is there just to say, hey, I'm here, leave me alone.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But because they can rattle so fast and so loud, it just adds an audible, intimidation sort of element to their defensive posture. And then what they'll do is they'll go, okay, I need to look larger, so I'm in a coil. I'll raise my forebody and head off the ground, and I'll use this rattle. And if something comes too close, I'll lash out and strike at it. And everyone perceives that as aggression, but it's really defensive in nature. If it was really truly aggressive, that snake would be on your leg like you wouldn't believe. If you were a rodent, you know what I mean. They would treat you. Yeah. They would treat you like prey, and you wouldn't be getting away.
But you're not going to get you're not going to get a warning rattle if it was really trying to.
Yep.
Oh, hey, there's a human. I'm just going to shut up here. Do not move the tail. Whatever you do, don't move the rattle.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be the purpose, right? But if you're saying that you're getting these, it's saying, hey, just so you know, I'm over here. It's like the kind of the hey bear thing, when you're walking in bear country over there, you just kind of calling out, hey bear. And the purpose of that is just so that they hear your voice way before you accidentally get cornered or cross paths, and they think, oh, I can hear something coming. Not really interested in meeting anything today. I'll move on.
Yeah, and that's what our larger snakes. That's what our larger snakes often do. You don't see them; they're gone. They hear or see you coming, and they're either fleeing, they're hiding, or in some cases, if you get too close and that snake doesn't feel like it can flee or hide, that's when they opt to defend themselves. And
you spoke about those. One of those behaviours where they do sit still and almost rely on being motionless or camouflage. What was
Crypsis,
the name? Crypsis.
Crypsis, yeah.
Crypsis. I couldn't remember. That was a word I'd never heard in my whole life, and it's. I guess you better explain it now.
you would have heard cryptic,
Yes.
cryptic behaviour,
Yes,
cryptic this,
yes.
cryptic messages. Cryptic just means hidden. And it comes from a Greek word called crypsis with a K, and it just means hidden or concealed, and it's just a behaviour that wild animals do because they're trying to survive. Their whole evolutionary purpose is to survive, so they can breed and pass on their genetics. It's not to go and hunt and kill humans.
Yeah, that's what you're very clear about is
Yeah.
they're not getting up in the morning thinking, all right, now let's go get into some fights so that I can break a fang or
So
get
I
a
can
rock
break a
dropped
fang
on me or
have my head caved in
yeah,
or chopped
exactly,
off.
have a dog bite me. No, it's
And so,
Yeah.
Ross, do you have troubles finding a lot of snakes? I wonder if you're some sort of magnet for snakes out there when you go when you go out on the trails, or do you have to do something to find them? Like, what's your process?
Oh man, that's such a big question because it really depends on, like anyone can sort of walk out in the wild and sort of go looking for snakes and see what they bump into. But when you get to the level that I'm at, I'm really trying to increase my chances, and what increases my chances of an encounter is knowing as much about that snake species as possible or that reptile species as possible. So firstly, I've got to jump on and find where the records are, find out if I'm in a part of Australia, what species are there. I'll do myself a wish list if I'm going on a big trip to look for a certain amount of species that I want to photograph. And then I've got to figure out, the distribution. So where they are in Australia, I've got to figure out their habits, their ecology. So how their relationship between their environment, how they use their environment. So what they prey on. So if I'm putting all that together, and I use tiger snakes as a typical example, and I go, okay, well I know that tiger snakes live around wetlands and river systems and river margins. And they live there because they predominantly hunt frogs. So then I know that they're diurnal, so they're active at daytime. So I might go out at about 8 o'clock in the morning where they're going to be coming out to bask. And because they're not fully warm yet and they're on the move looking for prey, they're just sort of sitting there basking, I've got a better chance at seeing them. Whereas later in the day, if they're on the move, they're traveling around through reeds and grass looking for frogs, and their detectability is lower than, say, those early hours of the morning where they're just warming up. So all of that comes into play when I sort of go out and find animals or species to photograph. So there's more to it than just sort of...
You have a good eye for it too. Like anybody dedicated, I'd say, that's a pretty cool stick, and you go, no, that's actually that's a Wrigley stick.
I'll give you an example. Just 2 afternoons ago, we'd all finished, and I'm working out on an airfield, so there's not too many humans around, and there's lots of bushland around. And I'm working out on an airfield, and we go out to the fire ute, and I'm the last one out. And I put my bag down on the ground so that I can undo the tonneau cover to load my bag in the back of the ute. And all 3 of the guys had got in and were sitting in the ute and put their bags in the back. And then just as I put my bag down, not 30 centimetres from my bag was a little legless lizard that was only probably as thin as a pencil and not much longer. But all those guys walked around it, walked over it, didn't see it one bit, and then, my eyes will just pick up anything that looks like a snake, because you do train your eyes to
most definitely, for sure,
to pick that stuff out.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're basically almost building up this neurological kind of recognition chain where your brain's going to be faster at identifying these things and telling a difference between a stick and a legless lizard quicker than the average. That's fascinating.
And I do it all the time when I'm driving. I can spot a tiny little 5 centimeter gecko on the road at 100 k's an hour because your eyes are trained to doing it, so much so that you're probably more looking at the road than you are just off in the horizon, like everyone else does when they drive. And we passed on the way back from work this afternoon. We passed a 1 meter long dead snake on the road, and I said, "Oh, there's a dead snake just there." And the guy beside me is like, he was looking out the front of the windscreen and looking where we were going, but eyes weren't trained to pick it up. So, and that is a bit of a shame because so many people hit wildlife. Like you were talking about, pressures that the wildlife faces, and like millions of reptiles get killed on the roads every year because people aren't watching where they're going. And so I understand sometimes it can't be avoided, but just a simple small correction, you could miss a lizard or a snake basking on the road. And
that same hike I was telling you about. So after I saw that enormous snake, I hiked that area. Then I jumped in the car to drive to another little hiking spot, and I was cruising down the four-wheel drive track. I was probably only doing 40 or 50 kilometers an hour, just cruising, and I saw a snake completely from one side of the road to the other, but it just looked like a shadow, because by that time of the day, the shadows were stretching the full length from the trees, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
So, but it just looked darker, and at the last second, I hit the skids and kind of turned the wheel a bit, went a bit sideways, but I didn't. I pulled up with it probably about a meter from it, and jumped out. First thing I thought was, "Oh no, I hope I haven't touched this." I jumped out and had a look, and she was all good. She was not even that really concerned. She just had a bit of a look, and then I just crouched down at the side of the road and watched her go cruise away before I, just in case another car came up behind me. And off she went. Yeah, pretty calm. Even after that interaction, there was no hint of being interested in me or anything.
No, like I keep saying, they really want nothing to do with you. We don't really represent anything. When we're in their presence, we don't represent anything useful to them. So, a lot of them will just have a look at you and keep cruising. And I've even had snakes be curious. Like you get a lady not too long ago was saying that she swore black and blue that she watched a taipan, come up and investigate her kids jumping on the trampoline, and it watched them and stuff like this, and she was making it out like this thing came out of the bush intentionally trying to stalk her and her children. And I said, do you not understand that maybe an animal might be curious as to whether you're a predator or not, and whether it's safe to get by you? So it might actually come up to you and observe you for a while, actually trying to figure out, okay, well, is this a danger to me, or can I get past here?
Yeah, exactly. And knowing that the amount of noise that my kids make on our trampoline, holy heck, you certainly wouldn't be checking it out to see if there was something to eat there. It's incredible.
Yeah,
it's like World War III.
Yeah, and those vibrations would also be, those
going through the ground
impacts,
and everything.
Yeah, be transferred into the ground. So, snakes can also pick those up as well. But
mate, I'm still struggling to work out this deep love, and I understand that you've said that you care about all wildlife, but you're just absolutely besotted with snakes and reptiles. Yeah. Like, man, it's just a love. I would say a deep. It goes beyond appreciation. It's just it's a love, and it's really, really cool to listen to.
Well, it's in my nature that was in my nature from a young age. But if you look at my other job, I'm a firefighter as well. So I do like to help people, but as well as the animals. And I guess I try and position myself as a bit of a buffer between, people and reptiles. And there's a huge, loss of information there, and there's a huge amount of education and awareness that can sort of work to be done. Mm-hmm. So I sort of try and be that medium between both, and I get a kick out of helping people overcome their fears, helping them understand what they need to do, keep their pets and family safe. But then I also get a kick out of, look, if I've got all these group of people that now don't hate snakes and they're killing snakes, you're helping the species, or the group as a whole, and you're also helping the people. So
It's your approach.
It's a win-win.
That's
Yeah,
right.
a
It's your
win-win.
approach also that's the way that in which you're doing. And I have to say, when I first saw your photography, I was guilty of assuming this was a one-dimensional approach. So, this guy really loves snakes, and he's found a niche, and he, or perhaps he just really likes taking photos of snakes. But to find out that you've actually worked in so closely with snakes, and that things like conservation and helping those species is such a big part. It's just kind of it's just such a much more interesting story. So it's
rounds it
awesome.
out.
Yeah, no, it really does, because what you're doing is you're presenting to the public. You're presenting this absolutely beautiful images of the snake. So first of all, we've got that visual thing. Then you're backing it up with all the educational information you put on your posts, and then now this fantastic video, which I'd like to call that a resource, because personally I want to go back and watch it again, because I don't think I grasped everything in one watch. But then you're also doing things like this, where you're just talking so openly and passionately about your love for these snakes. And I've just got to say, mate, it's just such a pleasure to listen to you, and I'm so glad that we got in contact and hooked up for this conversation.
Likewise, mate. I think this is hands down the best one I've done so far, and it really you touched on a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about and sort of get across to an audience, and you guys have done your homework as well, and it's also refreshing that you've been following me for such a long time, because when you reach out to me, I've got so many people on Facebook and Instagram that it's sort of hard to know everyone. So
absolutely, yeah, I understand that. It's the same with us. We get hit up for all different things, but
mate, we've definitely encountered a number of snakes. We've got stories. Tom's got plenty of stories. He'll tell you about them. And it's great to have someone with your experience and expertise just to bounce a few things off. And I'm sure our listeners are going to be glad we asked you some of those things, because you shoot pretty straight with what should be done and how we should be thinking about snakes. And that's what, in Australia we don't have bears. We do have crocodiles.
Yeah,
should
we
we
do
talk
have
about crocodiles?
No, I think that you see, the crocodiles aren't spread as far wide. Do you know what I'm saying? Like a snake's something you're going to encounter everywhere.
Yeah, so we do enter the wilderness, and we think, oh well, probably the worst case scenario is getting bitten by a snake in southeast Queensland here. So yeah, I get that it's got a bit of fear, and it's a big topic for us. So thanks so much for coming in and sharing all your knowledge, mate. It's great.
No worries, guys. Anytime. I'd be happy to come back and share more down the track as well. Yeah,
fantastic. We'd love to catch up with you in the future and see what crazy stuff or what crazy country you're going to next time to check out some snakes there.
Yeah, well, COVID's having a bit of an effect on that. So
understandable.
Stay tuned for more of Australia for now.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you're still getting out there. It's great that your job's putting you in a position at this particular time as well, where you can access a few snakes in the arvo if you get time.
Yep, and it's helps me sort of maintain the passion without having too much obligation there of trying to make a huge living out of it or anything like that. And I always sort of say that is obligation is the death of your passion. As soon as you have to do it because of all these other reasons other than the fact that you're just passionate about it, then it really is, it can become quite a drag. So, but the important thing is you've got to be doing it. Well,
and on that note, I mean, please just keep doing what you're doing, because I guess my goal for getting you on the podcast was to demystify snakes. I think we've successfully done that. Was to, as you said, make people take a breath and stop and just chill out for a second when they encounter something, and also start having an appreciation for the physical beauty and also the beauty in their behaviours and the way that they conduct themselves, because they're a fascinating reptile, and they're part of the ecosystem here. They're not going anywhere, and nor should they. So keep doing what you're doing, mate, and educating people. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well said, mate. Well said.
All right, mate. Well, thanks so much for your time tonight. As I said, it's been a pleasure. Craig, you got anything to add?
No, that's it. Thanks for sharing, Ross, and I'm sure we'll catch up soon.
Good on you, mate. Take care out there and keep sending those images, because I love it every time they pop up on Instagram.
No worries. Thanks for having me, legends.
All right.
Okay.
See you, matey.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya.
If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, we'd really appreciate your ratings and comments if you can spare the time. If you'd like to know more about HikeordieTV and keep track of our adventures around Australia, make sure you drop by Hikeordie.com. That's where you'll find all the information you'll need to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or Pinterest. As always, we appreciate your support. Thanks for listening.